It is that time again. Making sure that the sound is correct. Welcome to the soapbox. Good. I love the fact that you have your own side of the table. That works awesome. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is my wife, Mrs. Thomas. Let's get the mic between us. A little bit easier with the sound. Guys, I hope you guys are doing good today. What, Sunday?
Yep.
This is our rest day. This has been a work week for me.
I have not rested today at all. But
What do you mean you haven't rested? You haven't rested?
No, I just fell asleep a little while ago, but I'm up at 6 o'clock and doing stuff all day.
I feel you. This has been the first week of work for me. You know, going somewhere else to work. Yeah, so it's been like having two jobs for all intents and purposes. But nevertheless, so far it's been going well. We are doing test runs this week. You know what a test run is? It's like a dry run for the show.
Like a practice run.
It's a practice run. I was trying to get them to have the practice runs live. Because I thought it would be cool for people to be able to see from jump. Like, this is how a show is started. These are the people who are kind of part of the show, that type of stuff. I thought that would be pretty badass. No one else thought that was a badass thing. Apparently, that was just the me thing.
Well, I think the idea was, let's get it kind of...
On the ground floor.
Can we move these two things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's essentially get it on the ground floor.
Let's get a couple of practice runs in before anybody sees it, because this is the first time. So, and if you guys don't know what he's talking about, if you are behind and late to the game, then shame on you. But Jamal is starting his own radio show on Sputnik Radio, 105.5 FM.
Bam.
I found out the other day as I was driving in the car, now that we're in Maryland, I can pick it up automatically, so it came up. But 12 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday is going to be his time slot. And so
yes,
he's talking about the dry runs and the practicing for that show. He used to go to Fault Lines and By Any Means Necessary and guest and be a guest and guest host and co-host and all this other stuff. And
Garland is going to be gone.
They were like, you should have your own show.
Yeah, eventually. It took like 2 years. But yeah, I'm also going to be on Fault Lines coming up on Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, I believe. Garland is going to be away. And so, yeah. Double duty. What I'm really hoping, though, is that the dry runs go so well, where it's like, let's get this shit, let's get it popping.
Let's get it live.
Let's get it live. That's what I am hoping. I've never worked with Bob before, at least not on the.
And
that's my co-host. Bob is my co-host.
He was the producer on the other show, By Any Means Necessary, that also shows on Radio Sputnik.
Yeah.
And so he's now going to be
my co-host.
Okay, so let me read this out loud, and before we get officially into the contributor appreciation thing, in regards to, don't say anything, in regards to the name of your show. Can we release the name of your show? Just a yes or no? Okay.
Political Misfits.
For fuck's sake, I said don't say anything. Oh. Maggie Smith sent Maggie Smith is a Patreon, and she is a loyal viewer and commenter and all that other good stuff. And when Jamal originally talked about getting onto the show, we were throwing some names around, and she recommended Political Misfits. I recommended No Allegiances.
And I like
No Allegiances. I meant that in line of no allegiances, no party allegiances.
Yeah.
And
I liked it. Our guy, Mindia, liked it. He's Central boss. He liked it. Now,
but it's okay, let me just say.
It's aggressive.
And it's problematic because of what?
Well, so I love the No Allegiances thing. And I'm regretting now even mentioning it because everything else that we put out for No Allegiances is helped it up against that. It's like, hey, what's wrong with this one? Then essentially, that's kind of how it ends up. Political Misfits, I love. So don't misunderstand me. No Allegiances is so strong. It's so strong. And that was the thing that drew me to it. The issue has more to do with, at least for me, in my head, how are you going to be hit? I don't think you lean into a punch. There's some things that you know you're going to be hit for, and you're perfectly okay with being hit for those things. But for this, I felt like people are gonna go after you just in general because you're working on a network. Didn't matter that you had your show for like 4 years or 3 years. Didn't matter that nothing has really changed.
Because it's Radio Sputnik.
Because it's Radio Sputnik, right? And so for them, it's like no allegiances get cast as no allegiances to either country
States?
Or right. It gets a little dicey.
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Right.
it gets a little weird. And it sounds really close to traitorous almost. Like it's. I don't know.
You don't want to have to keep explaining.
Oh
no, we don't mean allegiances to the United States.
I don't want to. It's like no allegiances, but what I mean by that is the Democratic blah 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 blah. It's not gonna matter.
So.
But political misfits, it's the same thing.
Okay, so let me say what I was going to say. So Maggie Smith recommended that name. In this week's Patreon post, since she is a patron, her topic suggestion that she said was, I would like to give you the provenance, I think I'm mispronouncing that word, provenance of name.
Provenance. Oh, provenance. Okay.
You're not even reading it.
I just saw it. Provenance.
I would like to give you the provenance of name Political Misfits. Some time ago, when I was listening to one of Jamal's 2 a.m. streams, I was lamenting that I don't fit in anywhere politically, and Jamal said, I understand, Maggie. I consider myself somewhat of a political misfit myself.
I said that?
Jamal named his radio show without realizing it. Thanks for creating a place for the political misfits.
I love that. I love that. I didn't know that.
So shout out to Maggie Smith.
Shout out to Maggie Smith.
He said something last week, and he was like, Maggie Smith, one of my viewers recommended this one, and so I just thought it was
that's funny
fitting that she
because I could not for the life of me come up with the name of her show. Like, No Allegiances was the best thing I can come up with, but the Political Misfits works, and you start thinking of Aisha's aunt was over at the house one day. This was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And something came on with Hillary Clinton, her aunt, Hillary supporter. And Hillary apologized for calling people like kids, cellar dwellers or something. But he was talking about Trump's people who were going after her. And I'm like, yeah, she shouldn't apologize for that. Screw that. Which makes it seem as if I'm pro-Clinton. And then something else comes on and it's like, damn. And your aunt had this deer in the headlights look like, what the fuck just happened? Because in her head, it's like, well, if he's backing her, then he's in some kind of allegiance. Fuck that, no. The only thing is I just disagreed with what they were doing in regards to hitting her. By the same token, I think she's a horrible person. So both of those things could exist at the exact same time. It is a misfit position. That's kind of the way I looked at it. It's not about, it's ideological, if anything. Like, when I go for Sanders, and Sanders does something I don't like, I'm like, God, I hate that. I don't like the fact that he did that. There's no secondary thing of should I say,
party. There's no allegiance.
Yeah, there's no allegiance in this kind of case. I think part of it has to do with look, I think you can find bias everywhere. Like you can go anywhere to get that. And I think finding somebody who just says, this is what I actually think is, the person's not paid to do it. They're not any of that stuff. It's just, this is what I think. I think that's rare. I mean, and to give you a clear reason, not a bullshit reason, a real reason of why I think that way. Now, don't get me wrong. You can look at my reason and be like, oh yeah, he's full of shit. You can do that because I at the very least give you a real reason. It's not like, we need to get some kind of voter ID laws. And then to turn around and say, because we have so much voter fraud. That's a bullshit excuse. The real excuse is, well, because we want to stop certain people from voting and make it worse and put a headwind on. Well, being able to explain that, I find it to be a valuable fucking thing.
Okay, wait, we need to.
But I like the political misfits thing. I love that.
He's
Maggie Smith. Shout out to Maggie Smith.
Okay, so before we do our official spiel and introduction, we need to talk about the most recent news.
Yeah.
That popped up.
Kobe Bryant, unless he's gonna drag himself from wherever, is no more. Kobe Bryant just passed. Apparently, he died in a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
41 years old.
He retired in 2016.
41 years old.
I know so far, because there's reports that are coming in. I don't know if they have a final toll on the number of people who died in a helicopter crash, but they did confirm that his daughter was also
in the crash
on the helicopter with him. Yeah. Her name was Gigi. I can't remember her exact age, but she was also pretty young.
He boarded each and every night on both ends of the floor. I mean, yeah. I mean, but does it matter? I mean, He bought it each and every night on both ends of the floor. It just seems like of all
What
the
do you
things in the
mean?
world.
Well, I mean, they're talking about his legacy, like what made him great. I mean, it's just remembering, what made him great.
I know. I know. Fair enough. Great is always weird to me. Should Napoleon be called the Great?
I feel you, babe. Somebody passed away, and they're recognizing the thing that made him famous.
Don't misunderstand me. It's something different that makes somebody famous that makes somebody great. That's all. And when I'm looking at the valuable, whatever legacy he's leaving and everything else, yes, the fans and everything else know him because he dribbles a ball up and down the court. I would say the people who are around his life, it goes a little bit deeper than that. That's all I'm getting at. It seems so trivial to say he dribbled the ball up and down the court every night in honor of so-and-so, as opposed to...
But that's your perspective. I mean, for some people, he did an awesome job. Okay.
He played basketball really well. Yes, I get it. I'm just saying...
Fluffy Bunny says she heard 9, or he or she says they heard 9 died in the crash.
In a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
Wow. 41 years old. We were having a conversation the other day. My dog, Bo, the pit bull, he had a thing on his head. It was like a bump.
Our dog, Bo.
Well, our dog, Bo, has it was like a knot or a tumor or something on his head. So we got the tumor removed. It came out, it said that the tumor was cancerous. And for the most part, you have to pay attention to him, make sure he's not, give him Benadryl because apparently it was some kind of histamine tumor.
It's a histamine-releasing tumor. We got the tumor removed, and when we went back to get the pathology,
that's when
from the aspiration, like they checked the tumor to see what was going on with it, and the lab results said that yes, it was cancerous. It releases histamines, which is the chemical that controls like your allergies and stuff like that. And so he's on Benadryl for that, basically for the rest of his life.
But I guess my point was, in having a conversation about it, I was trying to make the point to my wife that even though it's not random, I mean, in the sense of something can go wrong, it is almost unpredictable in regards to any specific moment. Meaning, like, you could look over metrics and you could say, all right, people with this particular quality ends up dying at this particular age range and so forth. But those are kind of in a general terms. That any really specific case, it gets a little dodgy. And it's hard to necessarily predict in any moment to the next. Kobe Bryant, I would imagine, is still in the best health of his, well, at the time but he passed, was probably still in amazing health. And there are a lot of people out there, either with cancer, either with some other illness or some other disease, that thought if you gave them 100 to 1, they would have bet Kobe Bryant outlived them. It's so, it's hard to see around corners. Now, that could be freeing or that could be terrifying.
Right, and in the moment while we were having this conversation, and when Jamal brought this up, he brought it up in the response to, so after we got the lab results back from Bo's mass, somebody asked where it was. It was right on the top of his head, right in between his little ear. I mean, right perfectly on top of his head. They said, keep an eye on him. If he starts to act funny, there's a possibility, slim, but a possibility because it is a mast cell tumor. Another one could come back and it could be in his internal organs. So we have to watch him. And so this weekend he got sick and I was like, you are stressing me the fuck out. He was like throwing up and stuff. And I was just like, what? And I'm pretty sure it was because he ate some stuff he wasn't supposed to eat outside. But it just was everything. And it was kind of stressing me out. And Jamal was like, yes, he has this diagnosis. Yes, he had the tumor. Yes, there's a possibility. But in the end, you never know. I mean,
everybody dies.
He could, live another 10 years and nothing ever recurs again. Or, it's completely out of your control, which sometimes is, like you said, more terrifying because,
Terrifying or freeing. The cutest baby will die. I promise you that. Just like the most hideous, human being will at some point croak. I guess my point is, this stuff, there's no way out. Like, nobody gets out, unscathed in this case. Everybody goes alone. But my point is, there's a randomness in some degree. Like I said, in contours, if you're looking at numbers, and you can see, all right, this group of people in this particular distribution have a higher chance of X versus Y. But then the moment that you get closer and closer and closer to it, it becomes really dodgy and really hazy sometimes. I don't think anybody would have predicted Kobe Bryant dying in a helicopter crash. Even though, at some point, some celebrity has to die in a helicopter crash. You know what I mean? Like it's like over the course of 100 years, can I say somebody would die in a helicopter crash? Yes. In any particular day, would you take that bet? No.
Kobe Bryant was younger than you.
I know. And I guarantee you, I did not have the physical health of him or vigor or anything else. And part of the conversation kind of derived from one of my, if you would have known me 10 years ago, or let's say 12 or 13 years ago, I was deathly ill. And it had went on for over a decade, where in multiple occasions they thought he's on his way out. You know, that type of stuff. I've had family members that were in the peak physical condition playing football, like pro football. And if you would have taken a bet on the two, it would have been an easy bet. This guy's going to croak first. Well, not so much. Not so much. The other one died in his 20s, I believe. It was like a boating accident. But again, a corner. Like, how do you see around corners? There's, like I said, that could be freeing or that could be terrifying. I suspect, to me, I guess it's more freeing. I mean, look, life is difficult in the sense that you go from point A to point B. But oftentimes, people go through their life pretending as if they're not going to come to an end point. That's a stupid, thing. You should accept the fact you're going to come to an end point. And not just accept it in a way where you look at it as, all right, I have a finite amount of time. What do I want to do at the time? Assume for the moment you needed medication for pain, and let's say you had 30 pills. Well, you might fuck around with it initially, but the closer you get, you're like, all right, I need to start rationing this shit. But you start, it becomes a precious thing of sorts, in which case you don't coddle it, you use it. With this knowledge that, in the pursuit of you using it, you could die, but since you're going to die anyway, what's the point in coddling it, if that makes sense?
I understand.
I have said before, I run the machine close to the rims or close to the edges.
Adam Bell says, are you a Buddhist? This is very Buddhist.
It's not a Buddhist, it's just true. It's just true.
All right, so...
It's just very true.
Want me to do the spiel?
Oblivion.
We haven't done the spiel.
Go for it.
We have almost 400 people here.
No fucking way. Are you serious?
385. I didn't know what the hell that was that you were picking up. I was like,
what
the fuck is going on?
You're living wrong, dog.
I gotta go.
You're living wrong.
We have 384 people here. So if you are enjoying the content so far, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. If you are not aware, today is Contributor Appreciation Show. Once a week, Jamal takes the time out to do a specific show that is powered by the people, for the people. And so we put a post on by the viewers, by the patrons, by the supporters. We put a post on Patreon and we say, what do you want to hear for this week? And that content fuels today's show. So if you are a Patreon, make sure you log into... If you are a patron, make sure you log on to the Patreon platform and give your topic suggestion each week, and we will go through those and pick that content for today's show. If you are giving monetarily by some other means, just email topic suggestions. If you are not contributing monetarily, still thank you for being here and all of your support. This is what the show is about. If you are here and you enjoy the content, always give the video a thumbs up so Jamal knows that you like the content. Yes. Make sure that you are subscribed. Come back, share the videos, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And welcome to Contributor Appreciation. My name is Aisha Hollingsworth-Thomas, aka Mrs. Thomas, aka Mrs. The Progressive Soapbox, and I dip in every now and then to help out with the Contributor Appreciation Show.
So I want to go to polling first. Some of the polling that has come out, I would imagine, look, like I said, any particular poll, fair enough. Trends are the things that are important. And sometimes within the context of those trends, you can see momentum, movement from point A to point B, a person just kind of plugging along. Between those two things, that momentum could be going up or, it's still momentum, whether you're going up or down, I suppose. In Warren's case, it's going down. But in an odd way, it seems that many of her supporters are making a choice on who they want, meaning Sanders, and jumping board. Almost the you have nowhere else to go argument on the left.
Right.
It's like, she's tanking, dog. You better find a better,
jump ship.
You better
abandon
jump
ship.
Especially if you indeed want a lefty to win. Meaning not, look, I got to be honest, I don't know why Warren is in this race. Now, I don't know why she's in the race from the context of, if indeed if indeed your objective is to have a lefty to win, I want big structural change. It's time this country changes. We need to get all this stuff done.
Have a seat.
Then get out the race
Have a
and
seat.
support your guy. Get out the race, support your guy. We don't need to echo. But because she is not, she is splitting the vote in clear ways. Now, I was looking at the delegate math that they were like, based on Super Tuesday states, here's the delegate math and so forth. Warren has less than Sanders, but between the two of them, it would be a cakewalk over Biden. Meaning, Biden and Sanders are extremely close to the numbers that they have, and Warren is cutting into the delegate math. Now, I keep making this point that I don't know why she's in the race, because to me, it is very possible she's in the race to do exactly that.
Right, just to drag support from Sanders.
Just to suck away support. And I have a hard time for people explaining to me how that's not true. Because what they would say, no, she's a person to herself. She might be. But that's what's taking place. And I know she has a bullshit in the background. Yeah.
Bullshit.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
We need to go back and play the tapes from all the times where she was mimicking
pretending to be Sanders.
All types of crap.
It seems that Sanders, the goal was just to undermine Sanders. So but at this point, she's fading. Like, fading in real terms. So this is New Hampshire. Sanders, 22%. Buttigieg, 17%. Biden, 15%. Warren, 13%, which is not enough to get any delegates.
Buttigieg is over Warren?
Buttigieg is over Warren and Biden. Now, keep in mind, Buttigieg gets most of his support from whites. I think it was like 90% support were white. I shit you not. That number, I thought the number was fake. But no, it's like, it's 90 something.
Yeah, I thought it was over
90. It's like 93 or 94. It's like some C number.
I think people who voted for him or put their stamp on him it was accidental. Like, they were like, wait, what number did I hit?
He's getting like 93% of white support. It's some obscene
and this is
number.
New Hampshire.
And again, that's not good or bad. It's only good or bad in the context of whether or not you can win. And I'm sorry, don't come to me until you get at least 5% of the black vote. Just 5. Just 5. Just 5. Just 5. And by the way, the moment that you lie,
more than that.
The moment that you lie and pretend to have all of these African American supporters, and you find that 50-something% are white, and then the 4 that you put up in the big marquee didn't even know who the fuck you were. They were like, "What? He did
They're
what?
Like, I did what? What?"
And then they show one guy, and the guy's standing under a Bernie sign, holding, flagrant liar. What's his name? When they were on the DNC chair race, because apparently Buttigieg was in that race also, and I think it was J Moo. Yeah, I think it was J Moo. She has a statement where she said Buttigieg flagrantly lied, where she knew he lied, said something to him about it. He was like, "You do what you got to do to win." Walks away. Say, that sounds about right for him.
Enough.
Yeah, sounds about right for him, which is why nobody trusts his ass. But New Hampshire. So not just New Hampshire. This is Washington Post.
Wait, we gotta see it. We can't see it.
No. Oh, here we are. This is the New York Times recent poll that just came out. Shock poll. Sanders, 25%. Buttigieg, 18%. Biden, 17%. Warren, 15%. Pretty badass. What, Iowa is next week? Iowa's like next week?
And he hasn't even been able to campaign in Iowa because of the impeachment hearing.
Yes. Meaning he's hitting those numbers off the campaign trail. This is after he had a heart attack. In fact, you would argue almost that the heart attack, he like came from the grave or something.
Yeah, it was
it's like fucking Lazarus.
He was like,
he was like,
we gotta, yeah.
Just came out the bitch.
I don't know if I'm
out the hospital running, yeah. Jane was like, wait, stop fucking, I got a campaign. He just goes running.
Who said that? Jane?
That's what Bernie said. Yeah, Jane was like, wait, don't, he had the heart monitor on, just running behind him.
That's not what happened.
But it does seem that way. I mean, I don't think he went running out the hospital in real terms, but he
with his hospital gown on.
Yeah, with his hospital gown on, ass flailing in the background. I don't think that was it, but it does seem like there was a before and an after. Where after maybe ALC, I guess. I think it was that week where ALC, he gave that massive speech. I think it was in New York. And at that point, like, it looked like he was on a tear.
Yeah.
Not to mention he was getting endorsement. And now, This one, New York Times, 25%. And yeah, Warren in 4th place in this one also. Now, there's another one that just came out. I think this was ABC. Right here. ABC News national poll, Biden 28%, Sanders 24%, Warren 11%. Warren 11%. I also showed the polls the other day that showed the college vote. And whereas there used to be this kind of back and forth between Sanders and Warren with regard to the college vote, not anymore. In fact, you can do a bisection of how Warren has gone down and Sanders has gone up. And they literally almost fold on top of one another, if that makes sense. It's like her going up is his going up is her going down. It's utterly fascinating. It's almost as if people are finally making a choice. So here's another interesting one. So this was in the New York Times. Many voters in Iowa are fixated on elevating a candidate who can beat Mr. Trump. 38% of likely caucus goers said they thought a female candidate would have a harder time beating Mr. Trump. Are those voters sexist? Now think of what I'm asking you for the moment. Is the very thought me saying, I gotta be honest, I think a woman would have a harder time with Trump, which I think I've even said to you before. Now, I wasn't saying that because I wouldn't go for a woman. Clearly, I voted for Gabbard. I would have damn sure voted for Warren if she was running against Trump the last time around in 2016. It has nothing to do with the woman thing. It's matchups. Now, Sanders probably made that exact same fucking point. He probably said Trump would use everything at his disposal to try to tear a woman candidate down and with certain weaknesses that a guy wouldn't have going against him. That's probably what he said. Does it mean that she would lose? No. No, it doesn't. The whole point here is not whether or not she can win. The whole point is whether or not it will be easier or harder to make that win. It's like Obama with a Muslim name. Yes, that may be a headwind to try to win the presidency after 9/11 with a Muslim name and so forth. But he won, regardless. Yeah. So it's not, the argument is not impossibility. The argument is, do you think it would be a little bit more or less difficult? That's all. And only 51% of those who indicated that Warren was their first choice thought she could beat Trump. I thought she'd be best at beating Trump. Think about that for the moment. And is that a mindfuck? 51% of Warren's voters, people who said, this is our person. We want her. And when they asked them, do you think she could beat Trump? Or do you think she would be the best person to beat Trump? Only 51% say yes. Mm. I mean, that's amazing. Wait a minute, let me make sure I read that right. Yeah, let me make sure I read that right. Some reason I feel like I turned that around. And only 51% of those who indicated Mrs. Warren was their first choice said she would be the best candidate to beat Trump. Yeah. So, of all the people who thought Warren is our person, 51% of them thought she would be the best person to win. That means 49% who wanted her thought she would not be the best person to go against Trump. How many of those are women? And are those women sexist for thinking that? I hope you get my point. It has nothing to do, like, honestly, the argument has nothing to do with whether or not I think you would be a good candidate, whether or not I think you could do the job, none of that stuff. The only thing is, for whatever reason, when people look at the matchup, they say, for whatever reason, we think a woman would have a harder time winning it. I gotta be honest, I don't entirely know why I think that. It's not, because it has nothing to do with the caliber of candidate, anything else. It's kind of like Corbyn and Boris Johnson. Perfect example. For whatever reason, Corbyn matches up extremely well with Theresa May. When those two are like arguing whatever else, there's a poshness associated with Theresa May. Corbyn, these two almost have this kind of understood way of going about each other. Bojo has no such predilections. And the matchup between the two, he looks like an alpha male, and Corbyn looks like he's getting bullied. Right. It's that weird visual dynamic. It's the Kennedy thing again. Like, Kennedy goes against Nixon in a debate. People who watch the debate say Kennedy won. Yeah, people who watch the debate say Kennedy won. People who listen to it thought Nixon won. Nixon looked like he was sweating. It looked like it was, Kennedy is this dashing, they call him Camelot. There's, what's his name? Has a really good book called The Dark Side of Camelot. Oh, what is his name? The My Lai Massacre. It starts with a... God, I can't think of the name. But it goes into the cold Kennedy thing. But it's the optics, I suppose. But it has nothing to do with whether or not she can win. Those are different. Apparently, her own supporters thought it would be a hard time for her to win. And here's another part. And while Mrs. Warren's support fell across nearly all groups in the poll, her decline was particularly pronounced among younger voters. Just 16% of 18 to 29-year-olds supported her in the poll, down from 38% in October.
Sounds about right.
That is a brutal collapse. That's a brutal collapse. Wow.
Fuck Google says Warren can have a cabinet position at IKEA.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
Actually pretty funny.
It is.
All right, let me read these super chats before we go on to.
Wait a minute. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything else.
Topic.
And this is CNN's. Yep, CNN. Sanders adds momentum with new lead in New Hampshire. If Sanders takes Iowa and New Hampshire, oh my fucking God. And understand, that's him taking it with Warren in the race. Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. At some point, somebody has to ask Warren, why are you here? Why are you here? I need to find the superdelegate math that these guys were coming up with, but it's astonishing. I don't believe she's going to get that many superdelegates. I will be shocked as shit if Warren got as many superdelegates as they're trying to say she's going to get. And by the way, just to add momentum to this, look at this. This is Sanders in Iowa. Look how crowded that is. Joe Biden couldn't get a quarter of that room filled. And I hate to tell you this is the spillover. This room is the spillover, meaning he's filled up the other room and it's spilled into another room.
We know what spillover means.
I just wanted to make it clear what that was. This has happened to me before, believe it or not. When I went to the one in Philadelphia, were we together when I went to that one?
Are you fucking kidding me?
I can't remember entirely.
We've been together for 8 years
2016,
since before Bernie was running.
Nice. So I went to the one that was in Philadelphia, and it was like this. I mean, the line was around the block like 5 times. Temple University, it wrapped around like 5 times. And when it finally started to fill in, I think we were staying out there for like 7 hours, 5 to 7 hours. It finally fills up. And there's so many people that they're just still outside. Thousands.
Yeah, nobody can fit.
Sanders goes to them first.
Everybody can't fit.
And makes his pitch to them. And then after he finishes, makes his pitch to them, he comes in and talks to us. Yeah. So this is effectively what you're saying. I will tell you this. Between this and polling in your direction, it adds something. It's like the public has a tendency to latch on to stuff that they think is popular. I mean, it's almost like having this much support gets across in people's heads. Maybe he could win. That's all you need. I just need the door open. Maybe he could win. The moment that you get to that point of looking at this and you're seeing, fuck, the media has to acknowledge him. The Democratic Party has to acknowledge him. All of these people who tried to dismiss him are now acknowledging him. David Schuster, he's a journalist. He comes up, he says, my Democratic sources said they are freaking the fuck out. They're freaking out. Because they see this shit and they're like, oh my God. Oh my God. That dirty socialist can win. That's what they're thinking. And they're right. They're right.
I hope they are right.
They should have been watching this show. I would have told them that months ago. But Sanders is doing fucking lovely. Now the catch becomes, you still have Nevada, you still have and Super Tuesday. But the character of Super Tuesday is going to tell it. That's going to be, because California is now included in the Super Tuesday states. They moved up California last time around because California for the longest time had nothing to do with our elections in the primary, despite being a massive fucking state.
Right.
And so now that that's been moved up, it's one of those situations where it is fair game. It is fair game.
All right, can we do super chats?
Go for it.
Okay. Lloyd Tucker, thank you for the first super chat of the day. I had to go back through. So Lloyd, thank you. He says, this is the first live show I've caught since the move. He loves the new scenery. He says, happy for you guys. So thank you to Lloyd. Hold on, let me go back.
Can I inject one more thing? Still on this topic. Look at voters under 30. Look at this. Iowa's voters under 30. Sanders, 40%. 40%. That's up 11. Warren, 16%. That is down 22. Let me repeat that. Voters under 30, Sanders, 40%, up 11. Warren, down 22%. I'm sorry, down 22 points to 16%. Jesus fucking Christ. Where did the points go? I suppose they went to Biden, of all people. Look at this. Biden got an 8-point bump among people under 30. Who the fuck are these people? How do you go from Warren to Biden? How? How does that happen? How do you do that? How does that happen? Like, is it just people, like, look,
I don't know.
Is it just an authenticity thing? It's like, I don't trust her. Is it that? Or is it electability? Oh, maybe it's electability. You know, do you remember on, in the polling, even in the New York Times poll, who do you think beats Trump? And this is a trend. You can go through any poll that you can find any poll that you want to find. And you look at the numbers of it, and they would say, who do you think beats Trump? And every Democrat would say, Joe Biden. And I wonder, and you ask them the second thing, who do you what matters more? And they would say, beating Trump. Meaning, Joe Biden's numbers end up in this thing where he gets the second and third or first and second place because people think, well, this is the guy who can beat. Right. It is very possible that the reason why Warren has dropped like this is because they look at her as being
people
less
have
electable
jumped with
than
all of her
Biden.
Shenanigans and be like,
Yeah. That's amazing. God, that's
Joe.
amazing. I can't believe they would jump from her to Biden. But if it's under the model of electability, and in their heads, we care about the person who could beat Trump, and they think she has poor political instincts, like...
Well, they jumped from Warren, and some of them went to Sanders.
Well, a lot of them went to Sanders. Most went to Sanders. But that's expected. I mean, even if you look at Warren's second choice, her second choice is Sanders. Biden's second choice is Sanders.
Yeah.
But usually, Sanders' second choice is Warren. But no, that's not true. Sanders' second choice can be Biden, I think. But it goes on the electability thing again. But maybe this is what the New York Times was talking about. This notion of we think she may be less electable, and the thing that matters to us is beat Trump.
All right, so in line with that electability, Steve Jacob, another super chat, thank you, Steve, says, she froze, meaning Warren, from hecklers. Trump would eat her lunch.
You know what he's talking about? Ayanna Pressley. Yeah. So Ayanna Pressley and Warren were giving a speech. Hecklers started going after her.
I remember. She
froze up.
Well, Ayanna Pressley actually had to kind of take over.
She saved her. Yeah. I mean, Warren was just standing there like, what am I supposed to... And Ayanna Pressley comes in, takes the crowd, and has the crowd like clapping after she says something like that. She was like, you guys are protesters, and I don't want protesters. I'm an activist just like you. And after a while, the audience was like, yeah. And I'm looking at that like, wow. That woman is an amazing politician to be able to do some shit like that. But you're supposed to. Does she not believe that Trump is going to have hecklers at her rallies? Like, I mean, you can't do that. It's not so much that I think you should do that.
You know, it kind of reminds me like when people are about to go into a trial.
Yeah.
And your attorney will grill you based on how the opposition would grill you to prepare you for what you're going to see when you go into trial. It's like, these are the questions they're going to ask you. Clearly, no one is having those conversations with Elizabeth Warren because she is not dealing with opposition well.
Yeah, she froze.
Also, in response to your comment talking about the overflow, Lady Hawk, thank you for your super chat. Lady Hawk says she was at the same Philadelphia Bernie rally. It was April 2016, was also in the overflow and was in line for 5 hours. She says Philly feels the burn.
Wow. That's amazing. Talking about coincidence. Yeah. That was an amazing rally. Like, it really was. What I say, it does feel like a religious experience in a weird way. This kind of heady feeling. It's accurate. It really is. So this is...
Next topic?
Yeah, next topic. So Joe Biden is cracking at the seams. I
thought he was cracked and in pieces laying on the ground somewhere.
Well, he's been lying flagrantly. Like it's hard to put it in perspective. Lying flagrantly. Like, Joe Biden has a clear record on Social Security. I played at least 5 different videos of Joe Biden coming up saying, attacking Social Security, Medicare, these type of programs. And now that that's an issue, now he has concerns about it, and he doesn't necessarily want to own that. So instead of him owning it, he comes out, made a hit video against Bernie Sanders. I need to find a hit video. In which case, Bernie Sanders finally was like, well, now I can throw a punch. His people, New York Times ran an article, made the point that says they've been trying to get Bernie Sanders to throw a punch and go on the offense against Joe Biden for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that they could not get him to do it. It was only after Joe Biden went after him that he was like, okay, fair game. If that's true, that's worrying. That's disturbing if that's true.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to wait to get hit. You're in a fucking campaign. You shouldn't have to wait to get hit. Like, that. I've been on this channel for maybe 2 months saying, you got to hit him in his mask. You got to hit him in his mask. You thought that was funny. It sounds inappropriate. But it's true. If it's key demographic, elderly, African Americans, and the notion of electability, and I got to be honest, take the other two away. Electability by itself. Because the African American vote is not against Sanders. The only catch is we think Joe's more electable. He keeps Obama's elect. It's that stuff. And so the moment that you make this argument of, well, maybe he's not more electable. And if you can carve out 8 points from him, even if it goes to Bloomberg, even if it goes to Buttigieg, less Buttigieg, but more likely to go to you, then you should do that. You shouldn't have to be prompted for that. You shouldn't have to be prodded for that. You do it because you want it. There is nothing wrong at all. Nothing at all wrong. Not even nothing wrong. It is your job to show contrast between you and the other candidates in the race, especially the ones that you consider to be threats. And whatever you want to call it, Joe Biden, sleepy, out of it, tired, he could drag his carcass across the primary's finish line. He could. Do not get that shit twisted. He could totally win this. And that is terrifying because he will get bullied by Trump.
Yeah.
He will get bullied. The weak positioning that he's been taking, like he's been like, oh, Bernie has been attacking me. Have you been hearing this shit? Like he's been complaining, I need an apology from Bernie Sanders about Social Security. And it's like they do that. It's a weak move, but it's a weakness in the sense of, oh, this guy keeps hitting me. But that's kind of weak. Defend your position on this.
Right.
The catch here is Bernie Sanders is one of the only people who would lean into that nonsense of weakness by not hitting him harder on it. You should hit him harder. Joe Biden wants to complain and cry about his record. Call him weak. Do all of that is fair game. All of that is fair game. My biggest concern, my biggest fear about Bernie Sanders is not necessarily his political instincts. It's more so maybe killer instinct is the word I'm looking for. Like this notion that this guy's not your buddy. You don't even need to keep saying he's your buddy. People get it.
Yeah.
They know that you're full of shit with us. And I get the optics of it. But if your name is Bernie Sanders, and you full well believe it, like breath to air, breath to lungs, that either Biden will get his lunch eaten, like clock clean by Trump, or that he could potentially lose, or that you are the best person. Like, not only can I win, I am the best person with the best program for this to make this
Everybody
country whole.
says it, but if you really mean it, you gotta be a little bit more aggressive.
You gotta show it, and showing it is doing things sometimes you don't entirely want to do. I understand you don't want to throw a punch, but you better take that sword and put a knife in Joe Biden, especially if you can carve out votes, especially on this very specific point of electability. It is massively, massively important. This is New Hampshire Democratic primary, WBUR. This is another shock polling jump for Sanders. 29% New Hampshire, WBUR poll. Meaning the other poll that came out for New Hampshire that showed Sanders in the lead wasn't this dramatic. But this is fucking dramatic. That's dramatic.
All right, since you're jumping back to the previous
topic.
Well,
I didn't mean that. I'm looking for
chat.
something very specific. So go ahead, read the super chat. I'm looking for something very specific. Because Joe Biden is lying about his record.
Okay.
And I'm trying to find the exact attack video.
Okay,
Here we are.
Okay, well, that's the current topic. I want to go back to the previous one because we have a super chat.
Go ahead.
Vortex, thank you. Thank you, Vortex, for the super chat. Vortex says, DNC plans to use a new internet-connected smartphone app to help calculate and transmit results during Iowa's caucus. They may use it to rig the count.
Yeah, if I'm the Sanders camp, I would not be on board for that. I have to be honest. If you're the Sanders camp, you need to kind of just assume whether it's true or not. you assume
they're going
that
to
they're going to
take
try
you
to
out.
fuck you over.
Yeah.
And I would be dramatically against that. I would be for hand-counted votes.
Yeah.
That's what I would want. Because I don't trust the process. I would have my minders. I would be paying somebody $15 an hour to stand right there and just peer. If you could hire somebody in Iceland to check, make sure nobody, has their drawers on or whatever, you could hire somebody to stand in the polling booths.
You always refer back to previous things that happened to you in life and stuff like that. And that reminds me of I went out with this guy a couple times and he told me, he started to get really creepy, and he told me that it would be nothing for him to pay some guy to sit outside my house and see if I'm coming or going.
That's
or,
a goddamn
what I'm
shame.
doing. I was like, this might not be a healthy relationship.
Yeah, that's when you call that a date.
All right, so we talked about...
Wait. I want to hit the Biden thing real quick, because I found the video that I was looking for. So, Biden looks like he's cracking at the seams. Now, in the first one, it's this. This is the attack ad that Biden puts out.
It's an issue that's important to black...
Okay, so he does a few things. One, he lies at a press conference that he's having a conversation with. I think this was on Martin Luther King's birthday or something, at some kind of conference. He lies to the person who says, why does Bernie Sanders have more African-American youth supporting him? Biden says, there's not. And she says, no, there is, Mr. It is. Well, I just know, I just know that I have the most. It was just this weird, creepy one where he started going just directly into a lie, which he has to keep pulling him back on. Here's another one where Joe Biden is lying to this woman, pleasant woman, but Joe Biden is flagrantly lying to her about Social Security. Listen to
black
this.
and brown people who are more likely to rely on retirement income more so than white people do. And so it's an issue that's important to black and brown people who are more likely to rely on retirement income more so than white people do. And so do you think, though, that it's fair for voters to question your commitment to Social Security when in the past you proposed a freeze to it?
No, I didn't propose a freeze. Look, we're talking about is the time.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
Well, we've got some bad news for them. We are not going to cut.
So this is Sanders' campaign ad. Somebody spliced the two together. But they wanted to make the point that Joe Biden is flagrantly lying. The person who you just heard talking about cutting Social Security and a balanced budget amendment, which is the most right-wing, rapidly ridiculous shit that these guys came up with, Biden was backing that. Which would have meant cutting everything or freezing everything. Whether you want to say cut, freeze, or adjust, all of it. All of it. Joe Biden is lying. Now, Bloomberg's reporter at Bloomberg News, who was not supposed to be covering the election. Now, understand the problem with this. Bloomberg has an article, has a newspaper with his name on it. It is literally named Bloomberg. It means I have a small penis because I need to name it with my name on it. I need to find these other artifacts to make myself feel bigger than what I am. He names it Bloomberg. Fair enough. It's your cash dog. You can do whatever you want. He then has a reporter who works at Bloomberg, who gets a paycheck from Bloomberg. And that reporter has been writing stuff about Sanders. Now think about the problem here. Bloomberg got into this race explicitly to stop Sanders. He thought that billionaires somewhere, or that people somewhere, thought, we need the guy who started stopping frisk. We need that shit over the entire country. That's the guy that we need.
I don't know who thought that.
Nobody thought that. Jeff Bezos might have thought that.
This motherfucker.
We need Bloomberg in this. Bloomberg needs to get to the bottom of this shit. No, nobody thought that. You talking about hubris? Ego? It's not enough that you have $50 billion. That's not enough. Think of what you would do with $50 billion. I would buy an island. I would be sitting on that desert island. You wouldn't hear a peep from me for the rest of your fucking life. You wouldn't even know I exist.
Me?
I'm just saying people in general. I would have you have so much money and you need to fuck with this. Now, I know for Bloomberg's case, I want to keep my cash. I think Bernie Sanders is going to take my cash. You can think that all you want, fair enough. But nobody was clamoring for Bloomberg to get into the race. And the notion that Bloomberg is going to ignore the first few states and then try to operate in the last few states to rip the election from Sanders. good luck. Good luck on that. This is a vanity project. He could have used this money to give her the homelessness, but no, he wants to run in an election. Do you realize he spent like $200 million on TV ads?
Mm-hmm. I saw him when I was getting my nails done. Pop up on the TV screen.
And you understand the effect of this. I mean, because if Bloomberg is doing this, he's skewing what other campaigns must do. Meaning, if he's spending that much money, that means that he doesn't have ground support. He doesn't have people who want him in that race. For the most part, he's just spending cash in order to make up for actual support. And he's doing that. He's forcing the other campaigns to increase the amount of money that they would otherwise have to spend in this race. Steyer is doing the exact same thing. Between the two, Steyer is the only one that can spend money like that because nobody else has money like that.
Yeah.
And so you have this weird skew where between Bloomberg and Steyer spent like $100 million on ads, the lesser billionaire of the group. This doesn't dent their pockets one iota. It's pocket change. Put that shit in context. Think of all the work that Bernie Sanders has to do to get his donations. Running pillar to post. And yes, he's making more than everybody else, but so much work that needs to be done, and Bloomberg just drops it. Bloop. That should not be allowed. It should not be allowed. 1,000 times it should not be allowed. Yeah, so Biden is getting hit on a Social Security issue. The catch becomes, and the question is this issue eating into him and why he's starting to take a hit in Social Security? Meaning, look, people aren't stupid. The moment that you make Social Security an issue, and we're having a fight about Social Security, something I've been saying for over a month, you should be hitting him on. You should have been saying it on the debate stage. I'm pretty sure you can find video of me saying, yes, great debate performance, but you should have brought up Social Security because that's the thing that people matter. That stuff.
Right.
But now it's going into the stretch. People are paying attention to the election. And Joe Biden decides to cut a video attacking Sanders saying, Bernie's lying about me with Social Security. Sanders cuts a video that gets far more views, making the point clear, showing Biden's own words of him saying it. And they're making this campaign fight. Biden, do you realize Biden has got to the point where he stopped answering questions?
Yeah.
Like, he's been going in the campaign stops where the press have been waiting out for him, and he's just decided, yeah, I'm not going to be answering any more questions. I'm just going to kind of keep this moving. Right here, take a look at this. This is the press trying to get a talk to Joe Biden.
Mr. Vice President, you haven't taken questions in New Hampshire in 78 days. We gotta go.
Mr. Vice President, why are you taking questions from voters? Why are you taking questions from the public?
Can you comment on the opioid epidemic, the Safe Station program?
No.
That's a man who feels it slipping away. He feels it slipping away. That's what that is. He feels that slipping away. And in his head, he's like, damage control, damage control, damage control. Too late. You've already elevated the conversation. And then this comes out where he's looking like a maniac. This is Joe Biden's Howard Dean moment. Do you remember Howard Dean's moment? Like, Pew! That thing? He's like, we're going to go down the side now. And Wisconsin.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
That one. That was the greatest video ever. They made him look like a maniac. They made Howard Dean look like a maniac. I don't think they're going to run this video in loop in the same way, but Joe Biden looks like a maniac in this video.
Well, yesterday you said you accepted Bernie's apology, and now you're attacking him. Why are you doing that? Go. Why wasn't his apology enough, Mr. Vice President?
Right this way,
Why attack Sanders?
Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. He apologized for saying that I was corrupt. He didn't say anything about whether or not I was telling the truth about Social Security.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Are we okay with Joe Biden abusing the press in that way? He just hits the guy in the chest.
Him, yeah.
It's a microaggression.
It's like, why?
He wants to hit the guy. He's angry at the guy, but he can't show it. He's a politician. And so he has to, it comes out in this kind of weird way where he could just try to pretend as if I'm angry with you when really I'm really angry with you. It's like, he apologized.
He's
Called
like,
him corrupt. But he didn't apologize.
He's clearly tired of people asking him questions.
He's tired.
For him to turn around and be like, why?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like if you have a kid and they're like, mommy. And then all of a sudden you just kind of snap and you're like, mommy, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, that's exactly what it is.
He had a moment.
He had a moment. His patience was wearing down. And with all the pressure of a campaign, he feels it slipping away. I think that's what it is. He feels it slipping away. I mean, I haven't even looked at Morning Consult, but I'm pretty sure if I pull up Morning Consult, it's going to show something similar. Joe Biden feels updated on 22nd. Look at this. Joe Biden has been in the lead like 10, 15 points in this poll. 28 to 24. Oh, 29-24, I'm sorry. And you can see it right here. Look at this. These are the two who are in it. So let's put Biden and Sanders. Where's Joe Biden? Where's Joe Biden? Where's Joe Biden? Right here. Look at this. Look at his numbers. They're going up. One is going down, one is going up. At some point, those numbers are going to meet. And the catch here is Joe Biden bet to hope and pray that Sanders, that these polling methodology is right. Meaning, my estimate is that I don't think they can poll entirely for Sanders' group. It either is going to do better or worse, but I don't think they're going to nail it. And if it does better, which God knows I hope it does, Biden is toast, even with Warren in the race. And look at this part. The when you get to Super Tuesday, it gets even closer. 2 points. Keep in mind, national polls lie. What matters more so is what happened in the states. And if you're in a situation where you're going from on Super Tuesday, and if the character of that race looks like Sanders has taken California, has taken some of these other major states, electability starts to come into question. The issue for Sanders, and the biggest concern for Sanders, is what happens in the South. And this is one of those places he needs to cut his losses, or he needs to make inroads among African Americans. He has been able to he has the largest base of color in this race because of the Hispanic vote. It's such a weird, this race is so strange, so strange. I don't know how Joe Biden is going to be able to go without answering questions, though. And if he's concerned and he's flipping out over the petty questioning that he's getting from reporters on stuff like this, that's not going to bode well for the long duration of an entire presidential election. We're not even in general.
All right, I have a couple of super chats,
Go for it.
and we need to go through the Patreon topics.
Okay, go for it.
So I'm taking over. I got to go back up to the top because we've had quite a few super chats. If you are just joining us, we're about to hit, what's the highest number of people you've had on a live stream?
Maybe 550, maybe 600 at the most.
I think we're about to hit a record.
What are we?
We're at 595.
Uh-oh!
So, what the fuck? I just lost the super chats.
Here.
Can you bring them up? Because some weird stuff is happening. I don't like it.
Hey, right here.
Okay. Testing my eyeglasses. Okay.
I don't know which one you're at.
Okay, let me see this. So if you are just joining us, this is the Contributor Appreciation Show. Once a week, we take the time out, or Jamal takes the time out, to do a show fueled by...
That's the one that says you froze, Trump would eat her lunch.
Wait, aren't these in order?
Yeah, well, no, that's, if you scroll down, those are the latest.
Okay. This was the oldest one. Dilly Y'all 357, thank you for the super chat, says, do you think Presley really wanted to back Bernie? We were talking about Ayanna Presley saving Warren at a rally, and he's asking, do you think that she really wanted to back Bernie?
But what would stop her from backing Sanders?
I don't know enough about her to say that.
Well, I mean, AOC backed Sanders. What's her name? Ilhan Omar backed Sanders. Rashid Tlaib backed Sanders. Meaning pretty much everyone else that was part of the squad backed Sanders. What stops her from backing Sanders if she didn't want to do it? I mean, that's kind of my thing. I mean, no, I think she backed a person who she wanted to back.
Okay. All right, next super chat from Sabrina B. Thank you, Sabrina. There is no comment, but Sabrina did give a monetary contribution, so thank you for that. Next one up is Steve Jacob for the super chat. He says, Bernie needs more Nina Turner. Come on, somebody.
Come on, somebody. Nina be out there giving church.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doing church.
Frank Friel or Friel, I think it's Friel. Thank you for the super chat. Frank says, I can't help but think some dim bullshit is going to steal the nomination from Sanders.
It could.
What kind of backup plan does the movement need if that happens? Thanks for all you do, and the missus too.
All right, so
and the missus too.
I was thinking about this today, right? And I pulled this up because this is taking place as we speak. Tom Perez has put John Podesta as head of Rules Committee. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. DNC Chair Tom Perez has nominated John Podesta to be on the Rules Committee for the 2020 convention. Now, it's not just John Podesta. Now, if you remember, think back for the moment at who John Podesta is. Think back to who John Podesta is. This is John Podesta.
Get old John.
John Podesta email. That's the one who email got hacked, by the way.
Yeah, I remember the
working
Podesta
for Hillary
emails.
Clinton as her campaign chair.
Right.
Yes, as her campaign person. So, John Podesta, I agree with that in principle. Where would you like to stick the knife in? He's talking about Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. Bernie needs to be ground to a pulp. We can't start believing our own primary bullshit. This is no time to run the general. Crush him as hard as you can. Other than that, hope all is well and congrats. I love this part. We can't start believing our own primary bullshit. You know what he means by that, right? We can't start believing this is an impartial primary. We can't start believing that shit. We're just
and
saying
now he's
it.
going to be on the rules committee?
That guy's on the rules committee. He says Podesta is the one who says,
I'm confused.
I agree with that on principle. On principle. I get you're trying to ground Sanders' ass into a pulp. I get you don't give a shit about impartiality of the DNC, all that stuff. I get that. But what do you want to stick the knife in? I agree with it on principle. Where do you want to stick the knife in? We can't start believing our own primary bullshit, man.
Good stuff, man.
So,
take me back to the super chats.
He is the one
that was nominated.
He
Okay, so wait, you got to
that's
answer
been
the
nominated
question.
to the rules committee.
The question was if he's going to get cheated.
I know.
What's
Wait.
the backup plan?
I just want to point out. I mean, there are concerns because people are like, oh, you shouldn't bring up that. No, bullshit. You should always be thinking of contingency plans, especially in bad case scenarios. And the fact that he was cheated once means he could, in fact, be cheated again.
Yeah,
this is
definitely.
Robbie Jager. Look at some of the other notables, starting with Credentials Committee. Vice Chair Sharila Drugel was on the National Finance Board for Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign. Another vice chair for the Credentials Committee, Tonia Burgos, was a big Hillary donor in 2016. Sticking with the Credentials Committee, Elizabeth Bagley was also a pretty big Hillary donor in 2016. Platform Committee Vice Chair Jake Sullivan was Hillary Clinton's senior policy advisor, more specifically foreign policy, in 2016. Oh, that's ghastly. Platform Committee Co-Chair Julie Chavez Rodriguez, I'm trying to roll the R, Rodriguez, yeah, there we are, that's good enough, was most recently Kamala Harris's national political co-director. Of course, you can read all about Rules Committee. I think that's supposed to say Rules Committee co-chair Barney Frank and his role in perpetuating the financial crisis in dozens of articles like this one. This was Robbie Ayer again. This is nice. Platform Committee Vice Chair Daniel Gray was legal advisor to Barack Obama, then moved on to O'Melveny and Myers, the firm that vets Trump's appointments. Nowadays, Gray is Senior VP CLO for Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Carolina. Very nice. Platform Committee. Think about what I just told you. They've added a person from the healthcare industry
on the platform
to the Platform Committee. Platform, meaning what are you going to represent and what do you stand for? And if you have somebody who's from Blue Cross Blue Shields, you know what's not going to be there? Medicare for all. I'm just, this is the DNC. I had no such, I accepted that they were going to try to screw him. Mm-hmm. On Rules Committee, we also find Charlie Baker, who was co-founder of the Dewey Square Group. He worked in both Clinton campaigns. Then, of course, the Platform Committee, Bakari Sellers, a known anti-Bernie CNN contributor who also thinks the comedian Joe Rogan is a worse human being than criminal Colin Powell, because, Colin Powell helped push the war in Iraq and killed, 1 million people. So there's that. How about Carol Browner? After heading up Bill Clinton's EPA, she became founding member of the Madeleine Albright's consulting firm. That's the person who Anna Kasparian loved. Madeleine, 500,000 dead kids are acceptable, Albright. She was recently a fellow at John Podesta and Neer Tanden Center for American Progress for a few years. Now, Neer Tanden is the one that assaulted Bernie Sanders' campaign manager when he was working at CAP, Center for American Progress. So, now, the catch becomes, these are the people that Tom Perez is putting on staff. And just so we're very clear, when they had the purge once before, where all of those Sanders supporters were essentially kicked off the roster and everything else while they were still screaming at people that they were fair and biased and all this other nonsense. And by the way, Tom Perez knows. If you remember, Tom Perez at one point said that the primary was rigged. This is Tom Perez. We heard loud and clear yesterday from Bernie supporters that the process was rigged, and it was. And you've got to be honest about it, Perez told a group of Democratic lawmakers in Kansas, according to the report by MSNBC's Alex Sietz-Wald. Following day, very next day, Tom Perez, he comes out with this. And I can show you Elizabeth Warren doing the same thing, so there's that. I have been asked by friends about the quote and want to be clear about what I said, and I misspoke. The next DNC chair must be transparent and objective for Democrats to be engaged. That's why I believe that the debates and the process must be decided before the primary begins. Why? Because now he's arguing there was an appearance of unfairness. As if Donna Brazile, the person who was the DNC chair before him, didn't know what she was talking about when she explicitly explained how they were cheating Sanders. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? There was an appearance of impropriety. That's why I thought they was always full of shit. Tom Perez is the one who wrote the thing saying, let's use Bernie Sanders' whiteness against him. Mm-hmm. That's Tom Perez. Tom Perez is the one that Bill Clinton leans in and says, puts his rape hand on his back and say, don't let him take the party.
His rape hand.
Yeah, his rape hand. That's the hand he used to rape that woman. So, yeah. So that's taking place. Now the catch becomes, what do you do about it? My argument would be, ultimately, you can't do anything if they cheat you, meaning that's the DNC's discretion to cheat you. Your response is what do you do afterwards? Meaning you can't operate as if you're going to be cheated. You have to operate with this notion of what do you do if you're cheated and be very clear. I think part of the biggest problem is that the left doesn't have an organizing body of sorts, meaning a thing where they make group decisions, because that gives you a bit more of a pressure point. Meaning, I would argue that there should be a petition where, as very clear, if Sanders is cheated, you will not get the support. And millions signing that petition of saying, if he is cheated, if this doesn't go fucking spotless, not just spotless, doesn't win, you're not getting that support. Now, 50 or 40-something% of people who supporting Sanders essentially said, yeah, we're not blue no matter who, so, be careful with who you choose. And you may hate that if you're a Hillary supporter or Elizabeth Warren supporter, but it's just reality. I hope you understand, like Sam Cedar and these type of people who are like browbeating people, telling them to get out the race and whatnot. Oh, that person should... That's nonsense. You either have a democracy or not. You can make your case about why that person is a worse candidate. Fair enough. And even when I make my argument about Warren, I make my argument from the standpoint of Warren saying, I want big structural change. It's like, all right, well, if you do indeed want that. But I can't make the argument that she should just get the fuck out the race on its own self just because I don't want her in the race. Yeah. My point is basic. We need to be very clear that if they cheat him, hands off the wheels. You're going to win it on your own, buddy. Yeah. And having millions of people make that clear. You're going to lose it on your own, yeah. Because otherwise, what do you have? That's why I didn't quite understand this notion that you're cheating my guy and then I'm going to vote for you after you cheat my guy. It's like the democratic process don't matter. And if your candidate wins after cheating like that, what does it mean for the next go-round? What's the precedent that's been set? If your candidate loses and you get bent into form to vote for the person who you know clearly cheated you, that's a fail. Even if that means Trump wins. Trump wins. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's there's nowhere else to go for that. You should take every power at your disposal to ensure that this contest is fair and that it's not cheated to get to that, not get to that point. Because I gotta be honest, I don't want Trump to win. He's gonna go after Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff. That is not gonna stop him from hitting Joe Biden, saying that Joe Biden can't be trusted on Social Security. The fact, lying is not something that Trump cares about. But it needs to be very clear. If he is cheated, they need to lose. Yeah. They need to lose.
Princess Queen says there's too many Bernie or bust for them to cheat. I hope you're right.
I hope you're... Well, no. That's not the same. Like, you must understand what I mean. Like, if you have 10 million people who are Bernie or bust, but nobody knows they exist, is it the same thing as if everybody knows they exist? Those are different things. Like, one is I don't want Trump to win this race, which means I want Sanders to win it. Which means that for me, it needs to be very clear right off the bat. It needs to be clear, not in this kind of silent way, but it needs to be clear and understood that if you cheat him, you lose full bore.
Yeah.
And not just we think we're going to lose, but you have millions of people that will put it out of reach of you. And you know that going into it.
Well, I think she's just saying that there's enough people screaming from the rooftops that hopefully they won't fuck over our guy.
I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at that rules committee, and that rules committee, the fact that you're going to put, how do you put John Podesta
Anywhere
within the DNC platform, and then turn around and say we're being fair and biased. I mean, we're being fair and unbiased, or whatever the hell. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Can you take me back to Super Chats? And I have
there are problems with this setup, to say the least. Well, I had the mic over there the first time.
I'm not reaching for the mic. I'm trying to get this so I can navigate because we got to get caught up on these Super Chats.
Okay, go finish the Super Chats. And I'll
and
go
then
with
we
the
have,
coronavirus.
well, I have other topics from Michael Williams because he was blowing it up on Patreon again. Dun, 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 dun.
That's me.
Oh, sorry. I'm using it to make notes, man. Lost in the Fog of War.
I love that name.
Thank you for the super chat.
I love that name.
Says Bobby was leading the polls until June, so I'm not getting too excited.
No, I'm not getting too excited. Well, I think, look, I agree with you, and that's pretty grim of a, Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy got shot. Yeah. I'm going to get excited because I'm not going to make the assumption that they're going to whack my guy. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Don't misunderstand me. Like, it's not... I am looking at this from the perspective that there's momentum about it that goes, win or lose, goes that way. I'm not looking at it in these kind of dire ways. But...
All right. Next up, Koru. Thank you for the super chat. Koru says, just want to say thank you, Jamal. Believe that things will change. Bernie all the way. Sigmund 2121, thank you for the super chat. Sigmund says, Jamal, I appreciate your intellectual insights. I really love your rants. Keep yelling and holding your chin up, Professor. Live long and prosper. I love this because when I say that you do the thing where you lift your chin up, you swear that that's not a thing that you do.
That's a camera angle.
Thank you, Sigmund, for recognizing that. Megan Morales, thank you for the super chat. Megan says, brief note to say hi, and y'all are one of my favorite YouTube channels.
Thank you, Megan.
Oh, thank you, Megan. Xavier Foster, thank you for the super chat, says, MSNBC reporter slips up and says, Los Angeles.
No way! No way! Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah, Los Angeles.
Wow, that's messed up.
Franklin Jimenez says, hey Jamal, did you get to see that Biden is now trying to attack Bernie on the crime bill? Talk about digging yourself into a ditch after the Social Security conversation we've had all week. Wild.
He is digging himself in a ditch. Like, look, this is not, it's almost as if Biden thinks this is the 90s, where I can get out and I can go into a reporter and I can say, I never said that about Social Security. And that somebody can't pull up an internet page and say, well, Joe, this is you saying it, and then you flip on another tab and say, this is you saying it again, flip on another tab, this is you saying it again, flip it on another tab. He's talking to Luke Russer, no longer here. But Joe Biden's still saying it. Yeah. Like how? How? Like, does he honestly believe, regardless of what media says, does he honestly believe that people are so blind and that they won't be having conversations with their parents or their grandparents or whatever, and they can't show, hey, he said this. I mean, come on, for fuck's sake. For fuck's sake. So now he's having a conversation with the crime bill. Well, it depends on how hard Bernie goes with that. Is Bernie going to make the point? He needs to hit his ass. Is he going to make the point that they knew that this crime bill was racist at the beginning, meaning the disparity between blacks and whites in regards to the prison population, and they just went along with it anyway, the crack and cocaine disparity? Yeah, hit his ass.
Get him.
And because this needs to be clear, Biden had worked with segregationists to put blacks in prison.
Yeah.
And in broad general terms. And so you have the situation where, the guy was working with out and out racists, singing in the day racists. Strom Thurmond wasn't quiet about the fact that he hated blacks. Just saying. And Joe Biden had no issue working with them, either on the busing policy or on the criminal policy, putting people in prison policy. I guess my point is, yes, you should hit his ass on that. I could show you side to side speeches that Sanders was doing and Biden were doing at the exact same time. You would think that you're in a time warp in like two different planets. Like one is talking about how environmental factors sometimes pushes people into these criminal enterprises, and that if you want to really deal with crime as a holistic way, you kind of have to deal with the environmental situations that people find themselves. The other one was lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. I don't give a shit what happened to them, just lock them up. The second one was Biden, by the way, just in case you didn't know. Yeah. So, the person from Bloomberg wrote an article. The article she wrote tried to make the point that said, well, Bernie Sanders was trying to adjust Social Security too. I'd made the point to her, this socialist was trying to adjust it to take it up.
Right. Technically, yes, he was, but the adjustment was for an increase.
It was for an increase.
Give me a break.
Your other person, but my point is, this is a Bloomberg reporter who gets a check from Bloomberg, who is also running in the race as a billionaire that has spent $200 million with the express interest in stopping Sanders, writing shitty stories about Sanders. Supposedly, the paper wasn't going to be recovering the election at all. The fuck is this? Like, and then it's going to lie, just flagrantly lie, to put that stuff out there like that. Full of shit.
All right, last super chat. This one's funny. Marie Stark gave a super chat that says $15. Now, it's not a $15 super chat.
$15 an hour.
It says $15. I think she's talking about
$15 an hour. I think that's what she's going with.
All right, so let's get into a couple of the patron
go for it. What's the
topics. Now, like I mentioned before, today is Contributor Appreciation Show, and once a week, what we do is we go onto the Patreon, or I go onto the Patreon platform and put a post up and say, what do you guys want to hear on this week's show? And patrons go on and they submit topic suggestions. There's always a lot from Michael Williams, and I think he's actually watching the show live now. So thank you, Michael, for always ensuring that we have some content for today. We enjoy your content, but please, let's get some more people giving topic suggestions on Patreon. But we're going to do a couple of his...
Please, let me show this one first. I got to show this one first. This is still within the camp of Biden. So when you're cutting this video, it'll be all together. That's the only reason I bring it up. Joe Biden is being asked about Social Security. Now, just to be very clear, Joe Biden leaned into this. He could have always said, look, during that time, I did think that was the best way to save Social Security, but at this point, we're going to try to expand it. He didn't want to do that because what he knows is that prior behavior gets taken into account when people are looking at what you're going to do later. And he doesn't want to get caught saying, I'm trying to cut Social Security. Well, he's not the only one. If you remember, did you know this? Monica Lewinsky saved Social Security? Ask me how. Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton made a deal with Newt Gingrich to privatize Social Security. Now, Monica Lewinsky thing came up. And when the Monica Lewinsky thing came up, every bit of conversation, it took all the air out of the window. You had impeachment hearings, all this other stuff. Kenneth Starr investigation, the works. Meaning there was no political time because of the scandal that came from that. Isn't that amazing? Well, this is Joe Biden trying to explain about Social Security. And he's still lying, by the way. Listen to him.
Actually, in real contention to get the whole nomination.
This fight with Bernie Sanders over Social Security, you've said that he, quote, doctored video of you from the Senate back in the day talking about Social Security. But you did argue that cost of living adjustments as part of a general spending freeze were necessary to cut federal spending and reduce the deficit. That aside,
that was 20 years ago.
Even if Sanders is playing a little rough here and your position has changed, what about those Democratic voters who say...
By the way, Biden has just admitted
that was 20 years ago.
He's just admitted. Just so we're clear. What needs to take place now is for somebody, I keep saying Sanders needs to have his residential black person. Now, the reason I say that is because there are certain avenues that I don't necessarily think they'd be thinking of, or maybe they do push those ideas, and Sanders is like, no, I don't want to do that. But there should be a video of Joe Biden saying that after and showing the attack video that Joe Biden made. Meaning, because your argument at this point is Joe Biden has been lying to you. And Joe Biden has just admitted that was 20 years ago.
Somebody said it's not his fault. He can't remember.
Bullshit. Joe Biden remembers. He's
right, and
lying.
I was going to say that's been his platform and his stance for 20 years, like he said.
It's like, that was 20 years ago when I wrote that. That was 20 years ago. Well, Joe, the point is you've been saying that wasn't your position. You've been lying, and you just got caught.
Didn't change.
What about those Democratic voters who say that Bernie's been consistent this whole time?
Well, he hasn't been, but I'm not going to attack Bernie. He hasn't even been consistent on Social Security. But here's the deal.
Well, as a reporter,
are you fucking kidding me?
As a reporter, shouldn't you stop him and say, wait, what do you mean?
How has he not been inconsistent?
How has he not been consistent on Social Security? Right.
Give me one example.
Give me one example.
Joe.
Now, what he's going to say is, well, Sanders wanted to increase Social Security. That's an adjustment. Right? I mean, I guess, but that doesn't even work. That doesn't even work. Like, logically, that doesn't even work. Because Sanders always wanted Social Security to go up. Yeah, this is just a lie. And, like, you can't even come up with a political lie. He just lied.
Okay, this is really random, but it popped into my head, so I have to ask it.
Go for it.
Is Joe's full name Joseph? Or is he just Joe Biden?
I thought it was Joseph.
Oh, okay.
Joseph, what is it, R. Biden? I thought, for some reason I want to say R, but I'm not sure.
Because you know when people act up and they do stupid shit, you be like, come on, Joseph.
Come on, Joe.
That's what
Joseph.
I wanted to say. It's Joseph.
Yeah.
And I was like,
He just flagrantly lies.
He's just been lying all over the place. You know, I'm over it. I'm over him. I'm over Warren.
But you must understand, like, Democrats don't typically flagrantly lie like this. Like, do you know how much bad shit you need to hide for you to just say,
fuck it?
Fuck it. That didn't happen. That didn't happen.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
I didn't say that. That never happened. It's like, but we have the video of you. That's not me. That's a doctored video.
Somebody else did it.
All three are doctored? Yes. Yes. That's bad as Joanne Reed, time-traveling editors. You remember that, right? She had some like really homophobic shit in some of the things. She was like, there were time-traveling hackers that went back in time and re-edited that. Let's hear Joe Biden finish this lie, because this is obscene. Like, does anybody believe that Sanders hasn't been consistent? He's consistently wanted it to go higher.
Yeah.
You fuck around Sanders, what, there should be $5,000 a month. Let him tell it.
Laid out clearly what my plan for Social Security is. I'm going to increase Social Security benefits. I'm going to raise taxes for people making over $400,000 so they pay the same tax on every dollar you pay at your salary, or at $100,000 or $50,000 or $40,000. That will, in fact, allow us to get those folks who are outliving their Social Security in terms of benefits, be able them to increase their benefits. Those families where a spouse dies and the total Social Security goes down, increase their benefits and make it solvent for that child of yours I met.
So when you say your position hasn't changed, you were advocating for COLA freezes then, but you don't think they should happen now?
No, I don't think they should, and that was in the context of a gigantic piece of legislation relating to what we're in a gigantic deficit at the moment. And it wasn't to totally freeze, it was to freeze.
We are $23 trillion in debt.
Joe.
Just so I'm clear, we're 23 trillion. Why can't I have people like this on so I can have this conversation with them? I would have loved to have this conversation with Joe Biden. My first, I would have said, before you continue. It's like, wait, before you continue, how did Sanders? Why was he inconsistent?
I'm not going to talk about that right now.
That should have been the first thing
that he would have said, I'm not going to talk about Sanders right
now. Like, no, I
understand
that, but you've kind of made a dispersion against Sanders on this case. You're trying to say that he was not consistent on Social Security. I've said, because the reporter said, Sanders has been consistent on this issue. Joe Biden says, no, he hasn't. As the reporter then, isn't it a point? Joe Biden has just called you a liar. Don't you have to at the very least say, well, wait a minute.
Well, he did, and Biden said, I'm not going to talk about that right now.
Well, he says, I'm not going to attack Sanders. He said, well, I don't need you to attack Sanders. I just need you to
answer the
question. Just give me one way.
What you just said.
Right, clarify it. Then he comes and says, increase it. He says, so why did you want to cut it then, but you want to increase it now? That just seems to be a pertinent question, right? And if Joe Biden is going into this thing of, well, we had a payment issue, we're $23 trillion in debt, Joe. I guarantee you, whatever the debt was then, it didn't touch the $23 trillion now. So, what is it, Joe? How can you increase Social Security under your own model if indeed we're at $23 trillion in debt? Wouldn't that mean that you can't increase Social Security? Social Security is solvent for 50, 60 years, some insane amount. They keep taking from Social Security and then using the money and be like, God, Social Security is bankrupt. It's not. Not to mention, if you want to make Social Security solvent forever, you just make adjustments to the amount that people put into Social Security, meaning the rich. At a certain point, because at a certain point during the year, depending on how much money you're getting in, you no longer have to pay into Social Security. Expand that. Let that shit go for the rest of the year. I guess my point is, Joe Biden is lying here, and the lie doesn't even make sense. Joe Biden is effectively saying, well, we were in debt back then. I had to make some choices because we were in debt.
All right.
That reporter sucks. I'm glad that the reporter makes his point of well, you were advertising for that, Joe Biden. He was very clear. You did say that. He didn't give him any edge. And Joe Biden was like, come on, dog, that was 20 years ago. Can't hold me to that shit back then. I was a different guy.
Yeah.
I was a different guy back then.
I have to read this out loud because now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. N. Shay says, Biden always looks like someone is shining a flashlight in his eyes. I don't know why that was so funny to me, because I looked up and I was like, right, I was like, that's exactly what it looks like.
It looked like
I thought that was hilarious. Dill 357 says, corn pop saves Social Security.
Oh, corn pop.
Dill, thank you for the super chat.
Joe
He did leave a
Biden's
comment on the other
he
one.
said the kids used to rub on my hairy legs. It's like,
He's just so effing creepy. Jeez. Okay. All right, another super chat.
And wait. Just so we're clear, right here. God, I love the people I follow on Twitter.
Oof, my eyes are watering.
Some people want to cut Social Security benefits. Not Bernie Sanders. Not Bernie Sanders. What year was this?
Look at that.
Look at him. He's like 20, 30 years ago. Look at that. Oh, God. Not Sanders. Not Bernie fucking Sanders. You know, you say what you will, man. You languish in the wilderness for like 40 years. And I would imagine it has to be politically difficult to do that as a person, to be kind of like on the margins. But when you finally come into political force, god damn. I mean, you're talking about like 40 years of track record that are just steaming with you. That the moment that, like, one of the things Joe Rogan made the point, he says, you can always find somebody on their worst day and blow that up as this is the only thing that person is. He says, but you look back at Sanders for like 30 years or 40 years, it's the same fucking thing. Like, he hasn't moderated. Like, he's still the same guy who, these are the things that I want, period.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I'm pushing for.
All right, real quick on Social Security. Mm-hmm. Okay. Benjamin Buckley, thank you for the super chat. Benjamin says, since Trump's DeVos comments, Fox has been trying to convince its viewers that Social Security was not meant for them, but rather for the extremely old, so they should raise the age and keep working.
Wow, that's insane.
Fortunately, I haven't seen that because we're not watching Fox.
Here's the catch. If people are stupid enough to believe that, like, essentially, I'm going to convince you of something that is against your own personal self-interest. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Look, Social Security is meant for whatever your society deems Social Security to be meant for. It's that simple. This notion that it's for the extremely old, bullshit, nonsense. At a certain point, do you honestly believe that somebody get to be 60, 65 years old, that they should still be dragging their ass out there to work every day? And shouldn't they be able to retire with a certain degree of dignity when you get to a certain age? Especially when you have a situation where, like, for example, I guess this is apropos. Take a look at this. This is popular resistance, but just the main headline. So, right here. Even as the U.S. economy hums along at a favorable pace, there's a vast segment of workers totally earning wages low enough to leave their livelihoods and families extremely vulnerable. That's one of the main takeaways from new analysis, in which found 53 million Americans between the ages of 18 and 64, 44% of all workers qualify for low-wage jobs. Let me repeat that.
Qualify as low-wage.
44% of all workers qualify for like low-wage job. That means, I think this is like $30,000 for a family of four.
Their median hourly wages are $10.22, and annual earnings are about $18,000.
44% of American workers. Many of those, that's their main job. Like, that's not, we're just doing this to get extra money. Many of them, that's their main job. That's how they get from point A to point B. My mom was one of those people. Just to be very clear, trying to raise a kid. I guess I'm saying, I'm making the very, like, why do you want the elderly trying to compete with 20-somethings either in this job market? I mean, after somebody has given their productive energies for the entirety of their life, and Fox News is trying to convince them, no, you got 10 more years to give. Bullshit. If it was up to me, I would lower the retirement age. I understand where Social Security took away the blunt edges of poverty in the country. And it did. I mean, you have a lot of people who are retiring with no savings at all, going from pillar to post, just poverty. Like, especially if you've lived a life where you were already had a hard time making ends meet, where you couldn't put any money because your entirety of your earnings were, for the most part, just living off of them. You know, like if you missed the check or whatever else, you'd be screwed. Social Security is a big deal for those people. And not just a big deal for those people, it should be expanded. The notion that a 60-something-year-old should get into the job market, I find that to be farcical. Like, how sadistic is that? Like, what is it? It's one thing if the person is like, I want to get extra income. It's another thing to be forced to do it. Right.
You can't retire. Or they retire and they get another job.
Not to mention, the older you get, the more propensity you have towards illness and those type of things. Like, it just seems like your society is a pretty fucked up society if your society is like, hey, man, you got 10 more years that you need to... No. Trump is going to try to cut Social Security. And the Republicans have been trying to do it for fucking ever. Now, the catch becomes, if he wins, he will cut it. Because if he wins it, he's going to take the House also. And they already have the Senate. So, the Democratic Party needs to be very careful in what they choose. The problem here is most of the Democrats don't need it. Like, and what I mean by that is establishment Democrats. The people who are going to be hurt by that, for the most part, are voters. But Nancy Pelosi with $100 million is not going to need Social Security, per se. She should still get her check. Don't misunderstand me, but she's not going to need it.
Princess Queen, thank you for the super chat, says, been missing contributor appreciation. Glad to catch it on tonight. Bethany Hunt, thank you for the super chat, says, Social Security payouts don't rely on contributions. Federal government just pays it via Fed Reserve. Pay-in was a political decision by FDR, not a financial one to get people invested in it.
Yeah, he wanted skin in the game. His thought was I don't remember the exact quote, but essentially that the Republican Party can't pry it away from you if everyone has skin in the game. Meaning if everybody in the country believes, well, I've been putting money into Social Security. Well, it is hard for the Republican Party to turn around and rip it away from you when you feel that you've been putting money in. It's like, I have skin in this game. And this isn't something I'm being given. This is something that it's that type of stuff. So yeah, that's true. I mean, it is a political decision to pay it. I got to be honest, I care less about that. I tend to believe that for the most part, you can do what you want. There's no God stopping your country from being whatever your country is. That's political will in regards to what you can convince the public, what the public wants, those type of things. Social Security is just the right thing to do. Like, that person has contributed. They are productive energies. Like, meaning the things that person has put out over the course of their lifetime. And as they get older, now the society doesn't want to cover them. I just find that to be massively fucked up. Yeah. Is that the world that you want?
Princess Queen says 10% out your check for your whole life, for your whole working life for Social Security.
Pretty much. Skin in the
All right, David Morris says there's a new Matt Orfella video out an hour ago. MLK and Bernie. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that?
I have not.
I'll have to check it out. All right, I need to read the
Go for it.
Patreon ones. All right, so this is from the Patreon suggestions for this week. This I know the answer to. So I think you should do this one really quickly.
Go for it.
Michael Williams said, who would you say are the top progressives in the race? With Warren outing herself, can she really be trusted or said to be one?
No.
The answer is no.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by progressive, right? What do you mean by progressive?
I think from your own standards.
For my standards, no. Yeah, for my standards.
Who are the top progressives? You mean who is?
There's only one.
Progressive?
There can be only one.
The legitimate progressive in the race?
Look, I don't trust Warren. I don't know what Warren is. I don't. So I can't, they call her progressive because her stance on Wall Street. But is that the entirety and end-all, be-all of what it means to be a lefty? No, I don't think it is. Like, Ryan Grimm would make this argument, Warren is a lefty, Warren is this. I agree that on issues of, like, Wall Street, yes. I don't doubt that she's that person on that very specific issue. Everything else, no. I have no idea what she is. And I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. Especially after Bernie's sexist attack, that shit, she would never get my fucking support. Warren could be alive for the next 50 years. She would never get my support for anything after that. I mean, that's disgusting. Like, I think my issue is, under no circumstances would he ever attack her. None.
Especially not with some trashy like that.
Especially not with some trashy shit like that. They called Joe Biden corrupt, and he put a knife in his own person. There was nothing in that article that was wrong. Bill Maher even came out and was like, this article is fair game. This is exactly what Trump would do. Nothing was wrong. He still came out and put a knife in the person. Warren leaks it, gives it to somebody, either her campaign, somebody decides to give it to CNN. Whatever that process was, that CNN got it. The fact, and then that Jake Uger and Ryan Grim are like, we think that somebody might have circulated that from the Biden camp to make, bullshit. I don't buy that at all. Because if that was true, then Warren would have just came out and said, this was a private conversation. I'm not having any conversations about this. The notion that Sanders is sexist is nonsense. And she could have walked on. She didn't do that. She consistently pressed up attacks on him.
She was feeding into it.
She was feeding into it. And she was feeding it on two fronts. One, on a thing where somebody apparently was saying, making a contrast on the campaign stump, something that the campaign didn't endorse, by the way. But they acted as if this is the new campaign speech to the various houses. And by the way, there was nothing wrong with it. It was true. There's only one candidate in the race for Medicare for all. As a flat fact, that's true. So there was nothing wrong with that. It's a contrast. You're doing your job. She bitched about that. Then it turned around with this talking about Sanders is sexist, and she feeds into it, as opposed to putting a knife in it in a private conversation. And then she goes to CNN with a mic on and tries to get him in some compromising moment.
You just called me a liar on national TV?
He said, you just called me a liar.
Girl, shut up.
You don't want to put this conversation up.
Over her.
And so it's like 3 months or 3 weeks before Iowa, all of a sudden, this is the story. Talking about desperate. So no, I don't trust Warren as far as I can throw her. And the only lefty in the race is Sanders. She could have argued her point honestly. She could have said, I'm for a public option. That would have been honest. She could have said, I want to go after Wall Street. That would have been honest. Like, she could have said, I have a foreign policy that's more in line with Buttigieg or something.
No, she was trying to align herself with Sanders, and it backfired when the reality hit.
When the reality hit. And that's why I don't like her. That's why I don't like her.
I've been saying it. Somebody said earlier they've been liking her since before it was popular. I think I probably beat you to it. I haven't liked her since
2016. You didn't support my guy.
Long time ago. All right,
Yeah,
so
you didn't support my guy.
Michael Williams he apologized to me for bringing up this question at the end of this question, and you'll know why when I say it. This should be a brief answer. Michael Williams says, with Picard back, who would you say are the top 2 Star Trek captains? I say Sisko, then Picard, but my mind can be changed. Sorry, Mrs. T.
So my first thought is Picard, but fuck, man, Sisko. Like, it's hard, right? Because there are different things.
They had different experiences.
They had different
that
experiences.
They had to
like
kind
Picard,
of navigate.
Look, I think all things being equal, Picard is probably one of my favorites. Sisko, in a wartime situation, I want Sisko.
Okay.
And on a war, I want Sisko. Picard, his morality gets in the way. And what I mean by that is let me say it this way, between all of the Starfleet captains, between all of them, Sisko was the only one that was going to win that war. Now, what I mean by that is, it like, without the Romulans coming into the war, the Federation was going to lose. They were going to lose.
What about Janeway? People talking about Janeway.
I think Janeway was
really
necessary. I like Janeway as it went on. I liked the older Janeway. I thought the older Janeway was awesome. The younger Janeway is a little stuffy. But when she got older, especially when she came back in time in order to have the ship, she was a different person. She was more gristle. She was, more of a hard ass. But she cared and loved more. Look, the female captains, especially in the sense of Voyager, I thought it worked. This is kind of the Wonder Woman thing. Like, you don't have to give up femininity in order to be strong. There are aspects of, men and women that both of them have where they can situate or, degrade. In her case, she was able to be strong but not inflexible. Like, I have a hard time believing Picard would have ever made it back to the quadrant. I even have a hard time believing Sisko would have ever made it back. Janeway did. So whatever I think about her, she, from the standpoint of Sisko, it's the war thing. Sisko understood that we're on the fucking frontier, and you guys are at Earth, which is a utopia, and you don't get it. It would be like if there were like border skirmishes where you're trying to explain back to headquarters, like, dude, it is not what you think it is. You're living in a utopia. This is a fucking war zone. It's that. And Sisko was able to kind of steer that to place an even shedding morality in order to get the Romulans into the war. I don't think the other ones would have done it. I don't think it. I like
him. I like him more now that I've watched
Sisko
more.
Well, you see, it's the difference between the beginning seasons and the end seasons. When you and I have watched, we've only watched like from season 5 on because to me that was the best part. If you watch the early episodes, I think you would like it.
Oh.
I could be wrong. And maybe we need to look at some of the early episodes.
Lisa Mojica says, reel him in. All right. Somebody said no Star Trek zone. All right, thank you, Michael Williams, for that. We do have a couple more super chats.
Here's one, and we can go to super chats.
If you
Fox
show
News
one more poll, I swear for Jesus.
A lot of them came out at the same time. This is Fox News. Joe Biden down 4, lowest all year. Sanders up 3, highest of all year. Sanders 23%, Biden 26%. Bloomberg has spent $250 million and got 10% of the voter base. This is what $250 million buys. Steyer, this is what $150 million buys. 3%. Vanity project. It's a goddamn vanity project. People living on the streets, and these guys will spend $250 million for 10% of the vote share. Think about that shit. It's just waste money. But that's Fox News. Those are major polls. Like, it was a lot of major polls that all came out at once. Fox, CBS, the ones for Iowa, like New York Times one, all of those came out at once.
All right. Gary Curtis, thank you for the super chat. Gary Curtis says, if Trump gets a second term, you will see a ton of right-wing policies pushed through.
Yes, you will.
Since he won't have to worry about re-election.
One, he don't have to worry about re-election. Also, he won again. Meaning, after everything that you hit him with, he's going to spring a mandate.
Chest thumping all over the place. Trump, they try to take me down.
They try to take me out. I'm still here. Like, you talking about losing his shit?
Yeah, he's going to be an ass. Steve Jacob, thank you for the super chat. Steve says, do you think Bernie is too nice to fight the Dems?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Refi says, when can we call in?
So when the main show starts, it's going to be 12 to 2, and we're going to have call-ins. In fact,
he's talking about the radio show that he's going to have.
But the radio show is going to be going through my main channel. So from Monday through Friday, from 12 to 2, it's going to be. I made a deal with the station essentially to get the show pumped through.
It's still going to be broadcasted.
Still broadcast every day. So it's going to be encouraged to call in.
Aside from that, do you want to try to do call-ins next weekend for contributor appreciation?
What happens next? Okay, we can try.
It's the 1st. I'm supposed to go back to Richmond on Saturday, but not Sunday.
Okay,
we'll shoot for next weekend. Jay Wood, because Michael Williams' question was, who's considered progressive still in the race? And we were like, Bernie. No,
Sanders.
Warren is definitely not.
But
Jay Wood said, how is Tulsi not progressive? This is gonna be fucked up, but reflexively, I was gonna say
I don't know
she's
what
not
Tulsi
in the race.
Is. And yeah,
she's technically still running.
Yeah,
but I mean, she wasn't on any of the 5,000 polls that Jamal showed us today. So reflexively, I want to say, and it might sound kind of fucked up, but she's not really
just to put it in. I'm not trying to be
the race. Come on, what the fuck is this?
RCP average for Iowa, Tulsi.
Now, when I split these videos, I'm not digging through all this to find.
And you don't even have to put this one.
5,017.
This one is New Hampshire. Tulsi, I thought she was doing well in New Hampshire. She's pulling 4.9% in New Hampshire. In Nevada, she is pulling, let's see, Gabbard is at 1. In South Carolina, I guess my point is, yes. If you want to say Tulsi is a lefty, I got to be honest, I entirely don't know what Tulsi is. She has a foreign policy that tends to be to the left. Her domestic policy, I got to be honest, I don't buy her domestic policy. So
Lisa says Tulsi literally moved to New Hampshire and it's only gotten her to 6%.
That's not funny, man. That's not funny. She, that was her base of support. If she's pulling 5-6%, that's. Oh man, if Sanders loses, I'm going to be really angry at Tulsi Gabbard.
Mighty Mouse, just FYI, we are on Eastern time. So anytime that you hear us say 5 o'clock, 2 p.m., whatever, Eastern, 12 o'clock, it's Eastern. So his show is going to be Monday through Friday, 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern. All right, I got another, probably 2 more.
Go for it. And we can call it the day after,
patrons to read through. Maggie Smith, and this is the Nora I thought it was funny because they called it Corona. All I could think about was the beer. But the coronavirus. Maggie Smith says, shouldn't the coronavirus or any other potential pandemic be talked about in the context of healthcare that we don't have?
Yes.
If something like this happens, people will not seek help out of fear because they can't afford it.
So I pulled this up earlier. I wanted to talk about
Updates on the
there's updates on the
coronavirus.
coronavirus. China says coronavirus can spread before symptoms show as death toll grows to 80, and fifth case in the United States is confirmed. Now, when I saw that, I looked at you and said, no shit, Sherlock. It's a virus, right?
Right, you can have symptoms before, I mean, you can spread before you have symptoms.
I mean, think of having, I don't know, even if you have a cold, it doesn't necessarily show. It's like a cold particle has infected me, and now, I'm weepy-eyed, and I didn't expect that at all. I mean, you have a dormant period in pretty much every virus, I thought. Maybe not every virus, let me say that, because I don't know that to be true. But viruses have dormant periods, or periods where they don't necessarily present with symptoms yet, or where you experientially don't know it. Maybe your temperature hasn't gone up yet. Maybe you haven't started sneezing yet. Maybe you haven't felt bad yet. Maybe you're whatever, And so, of course, I mean, somebody can get on an airplane, go in D.C. in order to talk to Congress, within the time frame, how long does it take? Maybe a day, if that much? And within the time frame of you going from point A to point B, can you transmit that disease? Fuck yes. I mean, that would be weird to not think that or to not know that. And maybe they were just hard up for a headline, but yeah, I'd imagine it could spread.
Yeah.
Think for the moment if you had somebody, and think about interconnected world. Like, I could get on a plane from the United States to Amsterdam, be there in 7 hours? From that airport, I could get on a train and get to Berlin in another 2 hours. Now, at which point does this virus present itself? Because at this point, I've literally has just jumped across the world, and I have been infecting everybody who I've been interacting with at the coffee shops, at the restaurants, at the train station, at the airport, etc. We have an interconnected world. So it makes this that much more worrying. It's hard to kind of corral that stuff in those terms. But that's no reason to panic, per se.
Miss Tree, I don't see...
But I want to go into what's been going on with this. I've been seeing this kind of behind the scenes. I hadn't been paying too much attention to it. I know China was supposedly building a new hospital.
Oh, I see it, Miss T. I remember I saw something where they were shutting down. It kind of looked like a shopping center or this big kind of market where it was like the ground zero for this kind of thing, or where they said was to be started. And they were serving wild animals. They had wolf cubs and koalas and crocodiles and bats and rats and just all kind of random stuff, but
we eat that stuff too.
Wild animals.
We eat that stuff too in the United States. I mean, especially in the South.
I've never eaten a wolf.
Well, you haven't eaten a wolf, but
I don't think that anyone that I know has ever eaten wolf.
Yes, I don't know about a wolf, but dog, yes.
Well,
no, that's not true. That's not true.
Wild wolf.
Well, we have our own pet peeves. Don't misunderstand me. Like, for us, dogs are sacred in a weird way. But we'll kill cows, chickens, and everything else is fair game, but dogs, not so much. But everything else, I mean, frogs, squirrels, rabbit, any kind of wild game that you can get, be it fox, be it rat, whatever. Especially if you're in the South and you're talking about 30, 40 years ago, they used to wring the neck of a chicken by spinning the thing around. You didn't have family that used to do stuff like this?
Nah, bro.
No, we used to do it. They didn't used to have icebox, or they used to have freezers. And so they would have to keep
salt.
Or keep it under the house in order to keep it cool. Or eat it, depending upon the type of year. So for a chicken in the summer,
season.
Right, yeah. So for something like a deer, you can have it.
That was just in the South. They did that every fucking where before we had refrigerators, babe.
Well, I don't know where everywhere is. I just know for the South because that's where I grew
Jay
up.
Wood says, man, you only 30 minutes away from me now. I'm pulling up for a debate. Don't show up over here, Jay Wood. Nunya Beeswax says, if Dem candidates were Star Trek, who would they be? We're Star Trek characters. Who would they be? Man, why do y'all gotta bring stuff up like this?
I don't think they would be Star Trek. They would be characters. We're not, purely from a value system standpoint, it doesn't compare. like the drives are different, like the motivation.
Nation says they closed down the entire city of 11 million people where the breakout started. Wow. I remember reading something where they were like shutting down the market.
That's extraordinary. 11 million people. It says, with 24 new death reports coming from Hubei province, the epicenter of the outbreak, the overall death toll for the novel coronavirus in China now stands at 80, with nearly 2,500 confirmed cases countrywide. China has come forward with the news that the virus can spread before the symptoms show. Again, that's a no shit Sherlock. I don't know why that's news to anybody. How's that news? I don't know.
It's panicked some U.S. doctors.
The country's health minister, Ma Ziwei, bam, nailed that shit. Confirmed the bad news on Sunday, which has panicked some U.S. doctors. That's a no shit Sherlock. I don't understand.
What are we missing scientifically for this not to be a big deal to us?
What do you mean?
Why it is a big deal that it can be spread before symptoms are present.
But I thought all viruses were like that. That's what I'm saying. This is somewhat of a no shit Sherlock. Like when you get cold, when you first get infected, do you get symptoms immediately?
No, and like you said, the dormant period. I don't know.
There's a dormant period. I mean, think of what a virus does. Like a virus. Think about how a virus works. Bacteria, viruses are different. Your doctor can give you an antibiotic in order to get rid of a bacteria because it's kind of a living organism, and so you can kind of whack it in a sense. Viruses are different. Viruses inhabit the cell, turn the machinery of your cell to working for its own ends, and your
technical.
Yeah, your body starts to understand what's going on because of the waste material that that the cells puts out. And once, God, man, I can't believe I remember this shit. When I was
you just making shit up, babe.
No, my certifications. I don't even know if I have it back here. If you remember, when I first started my degrees, the first degree I got was in holistic nutrition. One of the things I was doing at the exact same time was herbology. When I was doing herbology, part of the studies had to do with immunology and how the body works in essence. Getting into macrophages, T killer cells, all that stuff. I can't believe I remember that shit. But basically, the virus takes over your own machinery and turns the cell into its own thing. Your body, at some point, recognizes it when the virus or the cell bursts. Other cells gets infected, and the waste material of the cell essentially gives away the fact that the cell has been hijacked. Viruses are not the easiest thing to kill in this way. And my point is the time frame that it takes for it to, I would imagine, do that process is not instantaneous. You could be infected without necessarily knowing you're infected, but I would imagine that's not just this. How long does it take the AIDS virus to present?
Miss Tree says Wuhan quarantine 20 million up to 50 million quarantine. Wow. Yet diplomats and Americans are somehow managing to get flights out. Funny how that works. Says it's in the same category as SARS.
Okay. Wow. But yeah, the fifth American case. And now we're freaking out. We're going to blame China. It's like China caused the virus.
All right. Let's do one more from Patreon.
Okay. And we'll call it a night because it's getting late. I need to get my thing ready for tomorrow. We are doing my dry runs. Oh. Well, so the show has a certain format to it. At least that's what we're thinking at this point. I mean, the thought is a monologue, which is going to be me since I do monologues 5 times a day.
All day.
Pretty much all day.
Like, I'll be sitting in the living room and he'll come and he'll be like...
Well, no, I mean on the show. I only do monologues on the show.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I only do monologues on the show. So, yeah, I do those all day. So my assumption was this shouldn't be too hard. The thing is, I started feeling apprehensive about it, despite the fact that I do this shit all day. I was like, all right, now I got to come up with a monologue every day. Oh, this is stress. It's like, well, dude, you do this shit like 5 times a day.
All day, every day.
Right, it's so fucking weird. It's like the moment that it is not your own will, it becomes different. Like
it's because now I have to.
Now I have to.
Like I've been doing it for myself just because, but now I'm expected and I have to do it.
Have to come up with some amazing shit every day. I also think the gabapentin is fucking with my thinking, or it was. Like medication. So I take one of the things I had when I was younger has to do with nerve pain. It was a long story, but the med for that, in order to prevent you from taking harder stuff, is called gabapentin. Gabapentin is like it tells your brain to not, pay no attention to the pain signal or whatever. But however it works, it does something where your brain, it rewires your way of thinking about the pain thing, so you don't perceive it as pain. I don't necessarily know if that works entirely the way it's supposed to, even though I think to some degree it does. But it ended up with a medication thing because insurance companies, fuck them, turns around and say, we don't want you to get your medication from this drugstore. Why not? Well, I mean, we just prefer to...
No. I love the way that they say, we prefer for you to do mail-in. Okay, right. So I understand your preference. I want to do this. Well, we prefer for you to do mail-in, so if you don't, then we're not going to pay. Okay, so you don't prefer it. You require it. Yeah, I love that one.
And so I get this... You have no idea how much...
I do.
How infatuated I am with the idea of crushing them with a Medicare for All into play. Because the fact of the matter is, with a Medicare for All, this doesn't become effective. Like, it's one of those things that don't become an issue. They're doing that because they want to increase their profits. Again, this is a profit-making enterprise in a way that they're trying to maximize their profit at the expense of us. And so there was a gap because they, A, wanted them to do that, and B, it takes a while for them to do that. Meaning a medication you're tending to get like month after month after month gets held up because the insurance company is like, okay, we want to make a change in how you get this particular medication, and it's going to take us a while for you to actually get it done. Like, I don't like insurance companies. I honestly don't like them.
Well, speaking of insurance and all that other good stuff, the original question from Maggie Smith was...
the coronavirus. Whether or not us having Medicare for All would make it better. Meaning, if I have to go to the doctor and I am scared about paying a hospital bill, I may not go to the doctor. Now, what does that mean if you have an outbreak? Now, would people be more inclined to go if they think there's an outbreak of something than not? Maybe, but you're still telling people there's an outbreak of something.
It depends on where we are in the outbreak. If I'm the first person and I have a cold and I have symptoms and I have no health care or shitty health care, I'm not going.
You're not going.
I'm just going to, try to... I'm not going to go.
And think about what that means. That means that within a very... period of time, let's say somebody comes from China to the U.S. or whatever, you may end up with cold symptoms, but you're not going to jump to the conclusion that, oh my God, I have the coronavirus. Yeah. And you have a situation where the more and more people that don't have healthcare, that's less of a chance you have of finding it. I would hope that if symptoms are bad enough that the person will go to the doctor. But let's be clear, that is a disincentive.
Well, I do think that a lot of times when these mass things start happening is that people get paranoid, so they go more often. So if there was a legitimate, like, real outbreak, and I think people are like, oh my God, oh my God, I got it.
It's the margins,
and then they would go in.
It's the margins in the beginning. Typically, it's the beginning.
No, and then she mentioned, like, are we equipped locally to deal with something like this?
That is a good question. I mean, we
don't have to find out.
We have a shitload of hospitals in this
We're
country.
pretty close to D.C. though now, so.
Yeah, but I guess the question becomes, what does this look like in the United States if it became something significant? I'm trying to think of. I remember when AIDS became a big thing, where people didn't know what it was. They just knew people were like wasting away, and they didn't have. God, this is me dating myself. They didn't entirely know what it was. And this was during like the Reagan era. I kind of remember this. I was a kid growing up around this. But I don't remember anything where it's been like multiple people dying and they're quarantining millions. Like, that's astonishing to me. Like, could you do that in the United States? How would you quarantine New York City? Or Manhattan? I suppose Manhattan might be easier to quarantine. But... that, like, what they're doing here. I mean, even the hospital. I wish I could find the clip of that. But they were building this massive, massive hospital that's going to be done in like 10 days in order to deal with the cases of the virus.
Yeah.
So, let me see. Dr. William Zephr, an advisor to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, called the news a game changer. Why is it a game changer? What the fuck am I missing? What am I missing? Are they just saying is it one of those things where it's a longer, what's the thing I'm thinking? Why I want to say infraction period, but it's not infraction period.
Like incubation
thing? Yeah, incubation period. Is it maybe longer than I'm thinking? Dr. William Zephr, an advisor to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, calls the news a game changer and said this means the virus is more contagious than we originally thought. Each of the 5 U.S. cases were people who have traveled to Wuhan, China recently. Oh, fuck. Because think about, but this is the case I posed, right? Babe, This is literally the case that I've posed, where a person was in another country, they traveled to the United States, and in doing that, they're able to hit all of these other areas where they're having coffee shops, restaurants, the people that they're talking to on the airplane, on the train station, all of that stuff. Meaning, from the time they left China and everything in between, there's a potential for infections.
Well, every bad pandemic, excuse me, because somebody said pandemic, not epidemic. Every pandemic movie that I've seen, or like zombie movies too, and shit like that.
Right,
when stuff spreads, once it gets airborne, meaning like once like people start flying, it just goes everywhere.
It says the victim is not currently severely ill. According to the Arizona Department of Health, the victim is not currently severely ill. Though there are only 5 confirmed cases in the United States, the CDC has just over 100 people being investigated for the disease that they expect the number to go up. God, man, that's amazing. Every interconnected world. I mean, what does the Black Death look like if it's not localized to one continent? Like, somebody from... But see, I don't know the incubation period of that. They might start showing symptoms before the person is ever able to get to a particular point.
I don't know. And we're not necessarily just talking about this individual virus. We're talking about in general, like, how would this look if how would something
in the U.S.
a legitimate concern look if it hit the United States?
The Chinese government is undertaking some drastic measures to contain the spread of the new virus. Wuhan, a city of 11 million people. Wuhan, I keep thinking Wu-Tang, god damn it. Wuhan, a city of 11 million people, has virtually been quarantined. The strict travel restrictions have been imposed on the entire Hubei province.
There's a bunch of people in the comments saying how this is like BS. Like the media responded before the outbreak even happened. Yeah. And, people are still getting flights out when they're quarantined and everything is shut down. And so there's some speculation.
Well, keep in mind, the media has a very specific perspective on this. I mean, their perspective is going to be what you would expect. We need to draw eyes, period. Meaning, there are multiple things that intersect with media, but one of the main thing is, if it bleeds, it leads. And if we have something where we could talk about a pandemic, an epidemic, people dying of X or Y, we're going to run with it, especially if we can point to it in China and we have a potential for it coming here. Like, that's what, let me say it this way. In the mornings, when you decide what shows you're going to air, and you just say, okay, these are the topics that I've been looking at, and these are the ones that I think are interesting to me, and then you start thinking in the sense of, okay, now, how am I going to explain this? But keep in mind, they choose. And in choosing, you might say, okay, the coronavirus, what's next on the coronavirus? Why? People are looking at that. People are concerned about that. And because people are concerned and they're looking at it, we want to kind of give them more stories on this particular thing. But it also means that you're playing up something that may not necessarily be played up because of what people may have as maybe legitimate, but it could also be illegitimate fears. Yeah. Meaning you're playing up something that may not necessarily have the severity that's associated with the way it's being played up. That's all. I don't know how bad this is. I don't know how bad this gets. So that's also fair enough. We have 5 cases in the United States. I would imagine if we have 5, they're a hell of a lot more than 5. But again, the question becomes the severity, and I would imagine China is taking it pretty damn serious since they've quarantined 11 million people. That number sounds astonishing to me. But
last super chat, and then we're done. We're done, son. It's 9:03. Black Sheep Theory, thank you for the super chat. And the final super chat of the evening says, yo, you are the reason I started my channel. I'm sorry, that was aggressive. As a young black man, you give me faith that I may be taken seriously on YouTube. Seriously, you're my favorite commenter. Much love, my brother.
Aw, thanks, man. What's his name?
Black Sheep Theory.
Black Sheep Theory. Thanks,
Benjamin Buckley says, Wuhan got you all in check.
Wuhan.
Buster Run.
Wuhan. Love that. Love that. One of my favorite artists, man. 36 Chambers of Death. I don't know if you like.
No, honestly, we're not going there.
When we used to Wu-Tang came out with that first album, I think it was 36 Chambers of Death. One of the best rap albums you would ever hear. Now, it's dated. Like, it sounds a little bit dated, but some of the funniest shit ever. Like, they would have like these skits where these guys are like doing karate
That was my
matches.
favorite thing was the karate at the beginning. The best. Okay, so this is, since we're talking about Wu-Tang. Do you remember when we went to Greece and we saw, is it the Parthenon or the Parthenon? Whatever. Yeah. We walked through it, and on the side of it, in the graffiti, Wu-Tang was written. Do you remember that? I have a picture of that.
I love god.
That was so awesome. I said that to my brothers. It was so random, and I was like, "This fucking Wu-Tang."
And by the way,
who put that there?
The movies that they were sampling from. Oh, they were so good.
Yeah,
they were so
those
good.
Old movies, like me and my dad and my brothers used to watch that.
Well, Jaleel, he used to watch those karate movies. Like we used to watch it at Long Way.
Where when you're talking, your mouth moves, and then a couple seconds later, the audio comes out.
Yeah, the audio comes out. Oh, I used to love those. But there was one, I think it was the Shaolin Assassin, I think was the name of it. We finally got the opportunity to watch it. And the guy, he was like the greatest swordsman ever. You know, he was a samurai, the greatest ever.
Yeah.
And the samurai, the shogun, got concerned because of how good he was and tried to get him axed. Now, in doing this, he fucked up because this guy was brutal. Now, but they did get him at one point where they were injuring him, and his kid was coming to him. He says, Almighty says, now, boy, choose life or death. No, I'm thinking of, it's not Wu-Tang. That's not 36 Chambers. I'm thinking of Jizza. But all of them were part of Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang had a ton of members.
Yeah.
They were part of their clan and whatnot, and all of them had their albums. Wu-Tang Clan. But there was that particular one was so good. There was one scene in that I never forget. The guy is fighting this woman who was sent as an assassin to kill him. And when it becomes clear that she's going to lose, and she thinks, oh my God, I'm going to die, she goes running. But she doesn't turn around. Like, she doesn't, like, they do this weird shit on Japanese movies that makes them so badass. Instead of her, like, turning and just running, she wants to keep her eye on him, so she starts running backwards to go away. This is so cool. It was so badass. And I'm looking at it like, what the fuck is wrong with her? Jaleel is like, she respects him so much.
She can't take her eyes
off of him. He may kill me if I'm running away from him. I could be a mile away from him and I still want to keep my eyes on him. Oh, that was so awesome. And the kid would like feed his dad. He would like take him water because his dad was all banged up. And he would just take him water from the lake and just feed his dad. Oh, God. This was so badass. I used to fucking love those films.
We should binge watch that this weekend. We should
some of the karate films.
Old karate. I used to have a lot of them on VHS.
Mm-hmm. I used to like them.
I didn't invest in like converting or getting them on anything else.
Yeah, God, man, I used to love those things. Bruce Lee and what's his name? Jet Li, younger Jet Li. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Jet Li now. I mean, he's so Jet Li, but the younger version of Jet Li, he was in this film, and again, the politics. Like, honestly, one of the most fascinating things about film is you can watch it and not know the politics of it. And you miss out. Even though you get something from it. And then you learn the politics of it and you're watching, you're like, hey, this is when Japan invaded China. And these guys are fighting. Nobody knows that. You're watching it.
I watched all that for all those years and
it never sunk in until you're watching it and you're like, oh, that's the Second World War where Japan had invaded China. You had the communist fight against the government. What the hell is that? Is that the icebox?
That's not the fucking icebox. That is the smoke detector.
All right, so let's kill this
the dogs are going to start howling.
Something is about to die.
Let's make sure
like,
good.
Share, and subscribe. Thanks all.
Good night.
Cut
it.